Welcome everybody, welcome. My name is Jose, I am a Golden in Kendo and this is Kendo Tips. Today we have a very special episode, or I don't know if you want to call it episode, or guest. We're having a Jodan player join us in the stream so we can ask him all the Kendo questions we want and everything we want to know about Jodan, whether it is to fight in Jodan, fight against Jodan. I want to ask him as many questions we can. I have a set of questions here set up already, but you are welcome to give yours. I want to remind you, please, if you haven't hit the like button, it really helps the video to get pushed out, really helps the channel. And memberships of the channel are up, so if you would like to be a member of Kendo Tips, you can support the channel this way. And this way you'll get a little bit of extra perks, actually a couple of extra perks. Like you can send me your videos for review and we can have access to special streams and so on. I'm still working on some of the perks for that. Augusto, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? So I'm very happy to actually have guests coming into the channel because one of my goals for Kendo Tips for this channel is to spread Kendo and to make information more accessible. So first, of course, I started sharing what I have learned, what I know, but I also want to help you guys get access to more and more information from the... Sorry, Conan, you distracted me. Got a sponsorship from Nintendo now? No, this is not a sponsorship at all. It's just a Nintendo shirt with a Kendo, picture. That's it. I have to. So I always like to wear a Kendo related shirt when I'm here. Anyway, so I do want to make this channel a source of information for people, just to make sure that we are at least trying to do our best Kendo. So I recognize that I need to bring people in order to get some of those extra details, extra information to make sure that we're doing good. So what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna just allow some people to come in before I have Jason join me. He is a Jodan player, I think he's Jondan or Godan, I can't remember now. Anyways, we'll ask him in a second. Ben, this is your new jam. Let me see what's playing. I always have like this I'll put on my favorites. Drag. I have like this thing that just plays music on loop that it's safe for YouTube. So okay guys, so Jason is on the chat. He is our guest today. I haven't given him the call, but he's Jondan. Okay. And we'll bombard him with questions in a second. Justin, can't stick around for the whole thing, but you wanted to drop by and drop a like. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Yes, it will be later, and of course, I'm trying to do with all my streams. I'm trying to edit them and release them, like little parts, so that way it's easier for everybody to consume. But it takes me some time. So I'm actually going to ask if anybody finds a cool time or something that was said that was interesting, cool. Either clip it on you should have an option to clip it, or if you can later on send me a timestamp so I can make, it'll make it easier to make a quick video. And I forgot my notebook, so let me get another one here. Hold on. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Got a notebook going, guys. Let me make sure that I have my questions set up here and everything is ready to go. Got it. Okay, we have a few people on the stream. What do you guys say? Should I give a call to Jason? I think I should. Let me set it up. Okay. Jason, so I'm guessing you're listening, so I'm gonna give you a call now. Let me just make sure to mute the Discord for a second. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Fernando, of course you will pass by. Of course you passed by this stream because you love Jodan, right? Actually, Fernando, I think you met Jason at a tournament before. Okay. Jason, can you hear me? Good, good, good. Let me just make sure that you're gonna have a good screen before I share everybody. Fernando, you can say hi to Jason in a second. He's here. So let me make sure everything is set up here. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, guys, so you guys should have a picture. One second. Guys, you cannot hear me right now. I just figure out why. Give me 1 second. Okay, chat, can you hear me? I figured out. Yeah, I figured out. It was my mistake. I did. When I was shooting the new layout, I did a couple of things that I wasn't supposed to. So okay, all the screens should be working fine. So talk a little bit. So make sure that we have good levels together.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be on Kendo Tips this morning. I hope you're going to enjoy this fruitful discussion that's going to take place on Jodan and all things such.
Yes, nice. Okay, everybody, can you hear the sound good? Is everything fine? I want to make sure that the sound, the volumes, and everything, the levels are fine. Okay, Augusto said all good. Fernando, you said that you thought it was another Jason. Okay, no. This is Jason Davis. So tell us a little bit about how did you get into Kendo, Jason? First of all.
Okay. Oh, this is going to be interesting. How much time do we have? I think we got a couple hours. We can make it work, right?
Okay.
So I'm one of those. I would imagine, like a lot of Westerners, we come to Kendo a little bit later on in our lives because we don't have that kind of saturation, that opportunity to do Kendo as kids. So I came into Kendo when I was 30 years old, and I was actually living in South Korea at the time.
Okay.
So I studied, I guess, what some folks would call Kundo, but it's Kendo. I studied Kendo there, and I started in a small dojo, very nice sensei, Rokudan. There was a big language barrier, but he worked with me, and we both kind of just made a mutual agreement that physical instruction would be our main method of delivering information, and that's how I started. And I did that in South Korea for a little over 3.5 years, and then I came back to the States here, to South Carolina, and joined our local club here at Columbia.
Cool. So your foundation comes from Korea. You started your business from Korea. Did you test while you were there?
I did. I tested in-house, in dojo, all the Q levels.
Okay.
And do Shodan.
Okay.
And then at Shodan, that's when I came over here to the States, and I took Nidan, Sandan, and Yondan in the States.
Cool. So quick little thing. So since you have the experience from practicing in Korea, where you practice it, was it considered Kundo or Kendo?
So I'd have to say that our teacher there, like, I didn't realize this till later because like most Kenshi, I was quite ignorant about what was going on in the first couple of like years, right? Like I didn't realize it at the time, but we would go in sometimes on our Wednesday practice, and he would take us in, and he would pop out this old VHS, and he would put this VHS in, and we would watch Miyazaki videos from World Kendo Championships. So at that time, I had no clue. I didn't know who it was. Now I realize, oh, well, my Kondo teacher actually followed more in line with a lot of Kendo philosophy, and they are very close. But that was fortunate for me, I think.
Cool. So I guess we didn't plan to talk about this, but since you have this experience, what are some of the differences that you can tell us about Kundo and Kendo?
Well, I can tell you that it's equal on both sides. And what I mean by that, I'm gonna keep throwing these idioms out there. I apologize if they're a little hard to understand, but that door swings both ways. So I've had the experience in Kondo where things happen very quickly and it's a little different of a style to learn. Some things, just a hair of a difference. The focus tends to lean one way as opposed to the other. And on the other side of things, I've also had that same experience in Kendo. It kind of just depends on like who you're learning from and how what they determine is the basics, the key home to focus on.
So and of course you have the different wording, right?
Correct. Oh my gosh, that was the hardest part. So when I moved back to the United States, it was like I was learning all over again. I knew not everything, of course nobody knows everything, but I knew a lot. And even the first practice, our teachers were like, okay, kote menuchi. And I'm like, which one's that? Just point to the part, point to the parts, and I'll do it. I promise. So it took a lot of studying. As soon as I came back, a lot of studying.
Nice. Yeah. Normally, what I do is I just start the drill slightly late so I can see what everybody else is doing.
Right. Yeah. Just like any beginner would do, right?
Yes.
Oh, that one.
Yes. I think I just gotten better at pretending, like pretending I'm like holding with seme, but then at the same time I'm looking. And then, okay, it's this one. That's funny. Okay, so you said that you got your Jondan. Have you tested in Jodan yourself?
I have not tested in Jondan. I have only tested in Jodan, and
Okay.
I've always, at the time when I started, we'll get into when I started Jondan. I mean, when I started Jodan later, but at the time I was still building, so I would say I was going about a 50-50. I had an aptitude for Jodan, and I also needed to build my Kihon and my Chudan. And when it came time to testing, I felt at the time that I think Chudan is going to be where I'm going to be able to highlight my Kihon.
Are you planning on making your next test in Jodan, or you want to stick to Chudan?
I'm figuring that out right now, to be honest with you. So there are some times, and this is one. I know we were going to talk about this later, but you have to kind of determine when you want to study Jodan or any other Kamae, anything. You want to start Nito, you want to start a different version or whatnot, but you gotta determine how all in you're gonna go.
Yeah.
You got to determine, is this going to be just kind of like, I'm going to do this once a week. I just want to do this to see how it is, or like I'm going to make the conscious switch.
Yeah.
So kind of in the realm of whether or not I want to go that far, or I want to keep being where I'm at right now, because I'm enjoying where I'm at right now, to be honest with you.
Nice. Okay, cool. And it's it's definitely a hard decision to take, especially understanding how your opponent is going to be dealing with it, and and how to deal with the opponents as different opponents as you present this. You have to show the communication, but if you haven't really done it for so long without the shinai, if you have done it not so long in Jodan, I can see how it can be very challenging to show that in your test.
Yeah, and there's some other, I think there's some other things you have to account for. I'm not sure how important it is, but and maybe this will start it all, but we don't have that many Jodan players out there.
That's
So
true.
the experience against a Jodan player, it messes with someone's Kenshi's mentality as they go into a Shinsa. So if you want to take Kendo back down to the basics, and you should be able to fight anybody.
Yeah.
It's just Kihon. It's all Kihon. It's all these variation of strikes, these basic strikes that we do. But sometimes in the heat of the moment, when you started off with Shinsa, and someone takes Jodan and you're in Chudan and you haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
Your mind's tricks on you, and vice versa too.
Yes. Well, I tell you this much: when I went to test for my Godan, I knew that there was a Nito player coming in, and I found out like 2 days before, and I got freaked out a little bit. I was like, whew, I don't know how I'm gonna deal with this.
Yeah.
So
it can be a very daunting, almost.
Yeah.
You almost get one of those 4 sicknesses before you even get into the Shiajo. You know.
Totally. So okay, I think let's get into one of the biggest questions that I get from people a lot, and it's why should someone start Jodan?
All right. So I've got several answers on this one.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna look at it from our dojo perspective, because I remember when I started it, it was avenue for me to continue to do Kendo.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of translation issues when I first started Kendo in Korea, and I was missing out on which hand I should be focusing my power on.
Okay.
My left hand. That's what we're taught now. That's what we do. Our left hand drives it, right? That's where it comes from. Our right hand is on for the right direction, helps with tenuchi and near the end. I was using a lot of my right arm. What I ended up doing is I ended up creating I created an injury for myself. I injured my right tendon right below the elbow, so much so that when I went to my sensei at the time, sensei, in very, very limited Korean, I did the best I could. I was Salonim, like I've got to quit Kendo because my right arm is really painful. Or if you could let me come and I could just do katate waza. Of course, I didn't know the word. I didn't know the translation in Korean, but I knew one arm. If I could just come and do one arm swings, just so I can continue to practice, because the bug had already bit me. I was already low. So he said, he was very nice, and he was like, yeah, sure, come on. And I don't know if any Kenshi out there, you can make a comment if you've ever actually tried to go through a practice just doing katate waza. And I think he saw my struggle about the second or third practice, just getting through the warm-ups. And he was like, here, do this. And he showed me how to switch my feet. He showed me how to kind of just adjust a little bit up here. And then he showed me how to give a little push off on my right. And then he pointed over to the corner and he said, here, there's a Kendo dummy over there. Our little practice buddy in Kendo with a little tire on the tire for the kote. And he said, have at it. So that's the first way. The first way is if you find yourself having a physical difficulty with Chudan. Physical difficulty, not like you just got bored with it, but physical difficulty. Try Jodan as a means to be able to continue to practice and continue working on Kihon. Because later on, I'm sure we're going to talk about how transferable those skills are.
Yeah.
Second thing I would say is, if you're at a level where your Kihon for your Jodan No Kamae, and let's face it, the beginning levels you got to test in Jodan. Wouldn't you say, Jose? Yeah, you got to test in Jodan at the beginning levels. I've never met someone that started very beginning from Jodan. Right?
Yeah, correct. The basic concept that you need to show, you cannot at a beginner level. I don't think anybody. I mean, somebody could do it, but at the beginner level, it's really hard to show these skills without breaking down or without disrupting. And like last week when I had Ash, which by the way he understands your pain of having a whole practice with one hand. We were talking about also not disrupting your partner's test as well, right? So at the lower levels, it's a little bit unfair to have to throw them into this whole experience. So yeah, I understand that totally.
It is. So I would say then the second reason is if your kihon is at a level to where your chudan is moving where it needs to be moving, and you and your sensei or whoever's in charge of your dojo has had a little chat, then you have to start thinking about how Jodan can improve your dojo health.
Okay.
Right. If you don't have access to fighting different styles, then you only get it when you go to Shiai or Shinsa or maybe a local area, Gorokeko or something like that. So you get a little more experience. So then it increases the value of your dojo, because then now you have more to learn. You have more to learn from. You have more to attack against, and you get some of that experience that it's really hard to find sometimes. It really is, at least in the Western world. I'm not sure. I never met actually, to be honest, I never met a Jodan player in Korea either. Even doing it, it was very rare as there at that time.
You know, interesting enough, I'm going to tell you a quick little experience that I had while I was in Japan. I have a friend, actually, Fernando. I don't know if you're still here. He was in the chat early on. And he wanted me to ask some Jodan players that I met about resources and how to do Jodan better, because he's very interested. He's very passionate about Jodan. And I went to this kid that he was in the college university that I was practicing in. He was a beast in Jodan. He does the whole thing that Shodai does, where he's turning, that he flips the shinai back up.
At the turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's a sweet turn.
And he does that naturally. Like he's a monster in Jodan. And I asked him, okay, can you help me with my friend? Can you give me some resources? And the first question he asked me is, why did he start Jodan? And, talking to him, I asked him, and he told me, okay, well, because he enjoys it. He looks, it's fun for him. He enjoys doing Jodan this way. And he was like, oh, okay. So then he kind of gave me this, again, with my limited Japanese. He gave me this face of like, oh, okay. So he kind of really didn't understand. And then I had the idea to ask him, so why did you start Jodan? He said, well, my sensei told me that I sucked in Chudan. So that I should try Jodan. And that was it.
It could be an alternative, I mean, I know the rules, again, we don't have that kind of experience here because we don't have Kendo in school.
Yeah, here. Totally. But it was so interesting for him to say, oh, I just sucked in Chudan and I decided to become a beast in Jodan. So
he probably did Kendo in high school at one point in time, and his coach was like, all right, the equivalent to in our world, probably putting him at goalie or something like that because he wasn't there.
Yeah, probably, right? And then he ended up being awesome goalie.
That's a great point, because that's actually was going to be my third thing. Is like a lot of times people just want to breathe a little bit of life into their own Kendo, and by doing so, they'll start another style just to see how it is, and maybe they want to learn it also because they want to understand how to attack it. If you want to know thy enemy kind of mindset.
Yes, totally. Okay, so funny enough, on last stream that I did with Ash, he also mentioned some of the reasons why you shouldn't start Jodan. So, in your opinion, some of the reasons why you shouldn't start Nito? So today, I guess I'm gonna piggyback on that question and ask you, why you think are the reasons that someone should not start Jodan, or should not do Jodan 4?
All right, so I would have to say your understanding of Kendo has to be at a certain level. And if it's not there, then you shouldn't start Jodan. And then what I mean by that is if you're still learning an application, such as just seme or something along those lines, if you're still trying to understand, when and where to strike Shikakewaza versus Ojiwaza, which is kind of on your Kendo tips last week, right? You probably shouldn't start Jodan yet. And, getting even before Kendo knowledge, like you shouldn't start Jodan as a escape from your Chudan. Unless in case the course of your friend where your sensei is telling you, hey, you need to start Jodan.
Yeah.
But shouldn't, I feel that's a that's an avenue of personal defeat if you're struggling with your Jodan and you're thinking, you know what, I just want to do something different. I'm not good at this. I want to try something else. Like, I think that can be quite dangerous mentality wise. And then also thinking that you're going to magically become a super champion, or you're going to start winning and getting more ippons just from making the switch. I think that would also be a not so wise way to start Jodan.
Totally. I agree 100%. Okay, so when you mentioned already you have to have your basics down, so on average what do you think is a good level for somebody to start Jodan?
You know, it's interesting because I had this conversation a while back about, you know, it always comes around with testing. You know, like you get this Shodai player, this Nidan player that is just spot on with their keyhole. You're like, wow, like they could go ahead and test for this.
Yeah.
Or you watch Jondan's Shinsa and you're like, man, that guy or girl looked like they were at Godan. You know, you have these folks that mature faster in Kendo than others. So, and that level varies. I wouldn't suggest it at the Q level, and I would be very cautious even in Shodan, depending on the age of the person. Just because I still think they're working on their applications of basic Kihon, and they're starting to kind of understand and mesh and mingle and practice with their own idea of some advanced terminology in Kendo. So I think if I had to put a number on it, I wouldn't feel comfortable going anything below Nidan.
Okay, cool, fair answer.
I have to say this though, I did it when I was Shodan.
Yes.
But I had that injury thing, right? So I think I kind of have a little clause there, a little asterisk at the bottom.
Of course.
So it's not for everyone. It's not the same for everyone.
Of course. Okay, Ben is asking, do you have any thoughts on what body types work best for Jodan? Tall, short, thin, stocky?
And okay, yeah, that's great. So I'm a heavier set Kenshi myself, but I don't think that matters because I've gotten whooped by, I really don't think that matters much. If you can move, you can move. I do think there is maybe some conversation there to have for height difference. But I'm not even sure about that. All the Jodan players I've met have been of average height. I haven't necessarily met quote unquote a short Jodan player, whatever that means. So I'm not necessarily certain about that. I would say, though, not necessarily with the physical build of it all, but your physicality and your ability to switch, like switch your frame of mind, and to be thought of in that sense. Like, so are you someone that if you were playing basketball, could you dribble with both hands? Like, so that might be more to the argument than short versus tall, because I'm not sure how. I'm sure there's short ones and tall ones, and they come in all shapes and sizes.
So my experience with Jodan, as a matter of fact, right now, I believe still this year, Ariga Sensei has one of his interns. She is a Jodan player. She was actually, if I remember correctly, I think she won with her school team division of the college All Japan. So she was in that team, and she does Jodan. She is not tall at all. She is not average height. She's short. And she has a mean Jodan. Mean Jodan. It's crazy.
And I think I sent one of the videos I sent you with Shodai Sensei, and I don't think he's that tall either. I think, it really depends. Of course, the physics of it all, in theory, a taller Jodan player with a longer reach might have more of an advantage, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Someone's taller in Jodan, they're going to be able to get to your min faster. You know what I mean? Like, it's
totally.
It's up to you. But that's a great question, though, man. That really is, man.
There's this article that Chiba Sensei himself wrote for the Kendo World magazine a while back. I think I have a copy of it somewhere. And he was talking about how to approach different opponents, whether it is taller opponent, shorter opponent. So there's not necessarily, I don't think that there's necessarily an advantage to whatever height or body type your opponent has. is that you gotta understand what their strength and weaknesses might be and exploit that, right? And of course, first of all, understand your own before you do that.
Right.
Ben is also asking, do you have any favorite Jodan player?
Uh,
Don't say
so
Shodai. That's not fair.
recently, I got on this kick of watching the seventh Dan Korean Invitational, where I believe, and I apologize if I get his name incorrect, but it's Kim Tae-hyun Sensei, seventh Dan from Korea, won it as Jodan, and he had very clean Jodan, a very very aggressive Jodan. That's the one I'm watching currently. Previously, I had the luck of joining a seminar in Atlanta, Georgia, a long time ago with Yamamoto Sensei.
Yes.
Was great, and that I searched and searched and searched a long time and found a couple of videos of him doing Jodan. But yeah, most people know the other Yamamoto, Mariko Yamamoto.
Yes. Which that's not her name anymore, by the way.
Yeah. I watched Daddy Yamamoto Sensei quite a lot, so I think those are my go-tos.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, I'm not too familiar. I know Yamamoto Sensei, and he has a very strong waza, but the reason why I say Shodai is kind of not fair is because if maybe a lot of people's gonna try to emulate Shodai, and there's a lot of things that not very many people can do. Like the whole twist with the wrist, yeah, you can learn it, but the way that he executes it is a whole different level. But the thing that I feel that, and I think we'll talk about this when we're talking about how to fight in Jodan and so on, but the recovery is very important, right? And I feel that sometimes Yamamoto Sensei has a very strong waza, but I think he lingers a little bit too much in a dangerous line where, against other players, he can get hit quite often, right?
It's true, because he did, when you watch the recent 8th Dan tournament, he went for a kote and he got caught with Suryage Min. And I think you could tell, like what you were saying, there was a little bit of a linger there. Strong strike, very strong. It was beautiful to watch. Just, yeah.
It's like he commits into it, he puts everything into it. But like if it misses, he gets into a very dangerous place, and this is something that I always try to keep in mind when I do anything, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if you were at that one, but one of the questions that was somebody asked Yamamoto Sensei, and this connects to an earlier discussion we had. He actually took his 8th Dan Shinsa. He did his first Keiko in Chudan and his second Keiko in Jodan.
Okay.
So he was one of those. While we only ever see him do Jodan on, like he was one of those ones that he was a 50-50. He still is a 50-50. Okay. Because I can only imagine how strong the Chudan is to pass the 8th Dan, and how strong your Jodan is. To get that mark on there.
Woo. Oh wow, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I was gonna ask you, how do you split your practice once you're doing Jodan? How much, I guess, percentage-wise, do you invest in Jodan versus Chudan?
Okay. A lot of that has to do with the dynamics of your dojo.
Okay.
Currently, just to tell you a little about our dojo, it's usually a 2 sensei operation most of the times. Myself and then my sensei. We're there. And then after that, we have a lot more Q level and beginners that come. So if we're talking percentages, then of course my majority will be spent in Chudan showing those beginners their basic Chudan. And I only have a small opportunity against my teacher in fighting in Jodan, right? Some other practices, some other big dojos, you have a lot of opportunity because my general rule is I won't take Jodan against someone unless they're one of those experienced EQs or NIQs that it's just they're just waiting, like it's time that's keeping them from their upper levels.
Okay.
I will take Jodan against them, but I will stop and I will show them how to do certain things against it first. and I'm talking mostly in Jigeko.
Hmm.
Upper levels, if there are more upper levels there, I mean Nidan, Sandan, then I will increase my practice. But if I practice 3 times a week, then I'll try to do half of it in Jodan and half of it in Chudan. And if that's not possible, then I'll always come back home and I will just do some strikes at home.
Okay.
Strike.
Your own practice. But okay, so this is obviously the struggles that we faced in our small dojos, right? But in your suggestion, if I have the ability to practice Jodan, maybe I'm not in charge of the dojo. How much percentage time? How should we divide our practice ideally on practicing Chudan and practicing Jodan?
If you want to keep going forward in both, and you want to keep going forward in Chudan and Jodan, I would try to do 50-50.
Okay.
And I would also be sure to split your warm-ups. Don't only do your warm-ups in Chudan. Make sure you're giving time for your warm-ups in Jodan as well. Whatever those warm-ups may be. That may be a variation, like if you're doing kote men and warm-ups, that may be depending on your level of Jodan, your education, you may not necessarily be able to do that. But yeah, I would make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunities to practice all parts of it. Even if you're doing footwork, like make sure if you're going down the dojo in Chudan, come back in Jodan.
Okay.
My teacher's very good about that. He's actually very good about reminding me, like, hey, David Sensei, like, you should do Jodan now to give you some more practice. Like, he really keeps me on point as well.
Nice. That's perfect. Okay. Any advantages or disadvantages that you feel Jodan may have?
So I think advantages. I want to go with the cliche that mentally I feel that you put yourself in a position to where if that's where I kind of spoke earlier on your advanced level of like where your level of kendo at. If you understand what Jodan No Kamae and the element of fire that it's supposed to bring, then you'll probably have the advantage of when you go into Jodan mentally, you're in attack mode. You're in fire mode. You're in that hunting mode, and you feel like you have an advantage over your opponent. That doesn't necessarily mean you actually have the advantage, but you feel
you have to have this level of confidence once you go there.
Correct. I think other than that, some disadvantages of Jodan is, well, I can't really think of any disadvantage. Honestly, I'm trying to think right now what are disadvantages of practicing Jodan when I started.
So, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say if you're doing it correctly and if you're doing it with fidelity and honesty, and you're putting everything into it, you're gonna get something out of it. I would caution anybody to, like I said earlier, like don't start Jodan if you quote unquote want to win.
Yes,
right?
yes. I think. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead. Your turn, Jose, please.
No, I'm saying like for me, in my experience against Jodan, so Jodan, especially when you don't know how to fight against it, you are going to have many disadvantages fighting against Jodan. But once you start figuring out the patterns and how the physics of it works, I feel that, and I like what Ash said last week on the Nito stream, was that, once you have one hand, you have more reach, but you only have one hand in the sword. So then it becomes, again, knowing the advantages and disadvantages, knowing the weakness and the strength. I feel that the sword, it takes longer to reach to me. Although it has more reach, I feel that it takes longer. So it makes it also easier for me that if I manage to intercept it, I can have more control because I have both hands on my sword rather than one hand. So I feel that, of course, I'm not saying that Chudan has advantages because I think both of them, they're equal. But what I'm saying is that once you understand how to fight against Jodan and you start picking these elements in, then you can start figuring out what approach to have, right?
Absolutely. absolutely. I 100% agree. I think also, I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but you need to have someone there to be able to analyze and point you in the right direction. So
Correct.
this is starting Jodan. If you don't have someone guiding you, then you could end up going and creating a lot of bad habits that actually in your mind you might think like, oh, I'm doing pretty good because I feel like I'm hitting ippon, but it may not be what is ideal.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Totally understand that. Okay. There's always the talk about different equipment for Jodan, like the mendare has to be shorter and so on. The one thing that I especially when I talked to my friend in Japan, that he did mention is the longer tsuka for Jodan, right?
I would agree.
Besides the longer tsuka, what do you think about the mendare? Any other adjustments for Jodan?
I think that might be player specific. The one that I have back here is a little bit shorter on the shoulders, just a little bit shorter on the shoulders. So, I feel like, when I take it, you have to understand when you take Jodan, you're immediately going to shrug your shoulders up.
Mm-hmm.
Like you may not want to, but just physically, it's going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's too long, then that can kind of obstruct at some point in time. Somewhere it's going to get caught.
Okay.
And again, like depending on your body type, that could also happen with the shorter ones as well. So you kind of have to go with. I mean, if only we could all try on the boat before we buy it, right?
Yes. Yeah. We should all move to Japan.
So you have to think about that. As far as shinai, I couldn't agree with him more. I prefer a longer tsuka. In fact, I also prefer. I have one here. I prefer one with a very thick grip.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'll show you a comparison to the one that I would use in Jodan.
Okay.
The one that I use in Jodan is this one right here. The
Okay.
one that I'll take on is that one right there.
I see.
That's essential. It's an extra large, and that's not for everyone. But when I take hold of it, I feel much more comfortable.
Yeah, it ends up being player preference.
Sure. Also, some waza. There's some waza in Jodan that actually that's pretty accurate. So some of the tsuka out there is actually very similar to the size that you have on your boto.
Okay.
A little bit more. There's some waza in Jodan that I cannot execute as well if my hands are too close to one another.
Yes.
And just because I know somebody out there is thinking, well, which waza? Typically the men and then kote that you see Jodan players do, that they'll show men, and then as soon as their opponent raises up, they go kote.
Yes.
So we have the same thing in Jodan as well. But yeah, some things just work out a little bit better.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Like, I know that, and we'll talk about this. I kind of want to touch on the shiai elements of Jodan. But I feel like one of the easiest way to get into the basics for this is gonna be what you said, men and morote kote, right? So with the two hands on the side, with the two hands coming forward, and yeah, but we'll talk about that in a second. Avi, we're going to talk about Kamae in a second, but he does raise a good question and something very interesting. I want to know your opinion, and also I would like to share some opinions that I got myself. The Kamae, when you do Jodan, let me get my small shinai. What's my small shinai right here? Okay. You see some Jodan players get a real grip on the right hand, and some other ones that they hold it kind of like with the thumb, right? What's the deal with that?
Okay, so I don't think there's any limitation. Okay, so I'll show mine. When I take mine, I have this area here, right there. Now, what I like to do is I like to keep my fingers engaged enough where if I do decide to execute a two-handed waza, then I'm right there to be able to lock those bottom two fingers and get a little more tenuchi out of it, right? Then there are some folks, I think what he's saying is some folks will do that one.
Yes.
I don't want to specifically speak for all Jodan players to do that, but when I see that, I notice that their waza tends to be more of your traditional straight katate men waza, katate kote waza.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Because they're doing with that is they're pushing off really with their right as they go down, and they're getting that right arm down there, but they're using that as a push off.
Yes.
Do the same thing here. You're just pushing off with more or less this part of your hand. And then of course some people who do that do the same thing. They push off with their palms. More of that. But I feel like Yamamoto Sensei had that little squeeze on his. Of course when we have our kote on it's really hard to tell, but this one you can tell.
Yes.
If your hand change, then something's coming. And if you see him stay right there, you don't want to take a guess in Kendo, but still, you have to kind of read your opponent.
So this makes a lot of sense, and I'm gonna share now some of the experience. And again, I'm not a Jodan player, but I pay attention a lot. So when I was in California, that Ariga Sensei's intern was talking about Jodan, that same question came up. Said like thumb or grip, and she said no thumb, always grip, no thumb. And it makes a lot of sense, especially coming from Jodan, because of course we use our right hand for guidance, right? So it makes a lot of more sense that you as a Jodan player can have more control on the way down, the angle, the direction that the sword is going to go if you have two hands rather than just one hand.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Jose. That's a great point. So, just like, that's another thing is like everything else, I have to create a little bit of room for me here. Everything else, like no matter where you do, and I think we talked about how different Jodan players will have theirs they'll have it in various places. But no matter what, just like in Kendo, when that min comes down, it needs to come down straight. Right? It needs to come down straight. That right arm is something that sets it on the right path. If it doesn't on the right path, then, and this is some helpful hints for our Jodan players out there who are going to fight against someone who's in Jodan. If it doesn't come down and they're not pushing, then your Jodan player has to bring their arm first here. Because if they don't, then what they do is they create a kind of a sideways min coming down, and it doesn't look good at all, especially if you're looking at it straight on. From the side, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, but imagine someone hitting Jodan min, but their shinai is tilted this way every time.
Well, you see it a lot on the opposite end when they're trying to get away from the center line to think that they can get better men, right? Okay, I have to catch up with a little bit of the comments, guys. I'm not ignoring you. Sorry, my chair keeps dropping. I hate this chair. I need to change it. But quick little thing. So let me make sure that I understand. So what you're saying is that when the person doesn't have that guidance, they need to adjust the hand before they come down for the man, or as they go, so you can predict more where they're going.
Yes, there's more of an advanced level on that. You're absolutely right. You have those Jodan players out there that will keep everything nice and square, and then you have the players that will really kind of twist. And Chiba Sensei does this in his video. They will twist like they do that katate men, and then in that twisting, they might actually straighten out. So it's not a thing, but it is one of the tells of a Jodan player is maybe they start to head this way just slightly to get that point, the center point, or they wait, they push, and they turn to get the center point.
Got you. Guys, what I'm gonna do is because I hate this chair, I'm gonna get out of my chair. I'm gonna put up my desk a little bit higher. That way, I don't keep dropping. So give me a second, guys. Okay, let me see. Okay, this is big enough. Let me just put the camera a little bit higher. There. Okay, should be fine. Okay. Oh, a little bit too high, I think. Good. Let's see. Okay, Avi, he's asking for a friend. When is a good time to pick up Jodan? Avi, we kind of talked about this earlier, so tell me. Yeah, asking for a friend, right? Jason, so you tell me if I'm phrasing correctly what you said. So what Jason said is that it really depends a lot on the level of the person. You want to make sure that you have some foundation sense. So he will suggest staying away from starting on the Q and Shodan. Ideally for him it will be Nidan, but of course it's in a case by case scenario because depends on the ability and the skills. Also depends also physical ability as well, right? Did I say it?
Good luck, Avi. Good luck.
Good luck on your friend, Abby. Actually, he does Nito. He's a really good Nito. I really enjoy practicing with him. So, and you're planning to test in Nito, right, for the next test, Abby? If I'm not mistaken. And Fernando wants to ask a question. The position of his hand. Remember what Sensei told him that was very uncomfortable, and I want to see how it is. Okay, Fernando. He sent me a video from Chiba Sensei. He's gonna explain it, so we're gonna go over all the details of Kamae in a second. So yeah, stay tuned. So you're gonna get an answer to that question. I just don't want to keep repeating the things. Actually, that's the next topic that we're gonna be talking about. I have this question set up in a different order, but let me ask you this question: What are some of the biggest misinterpretations that you see, that you hear from people when talking about Jodan, and how what are the biggest misinterpretation when people taking up Jodan?
It's a faster way. It's a faster way to achieve Ippon or something like that. A quicker way to get results. It's not the same fundamentally. It's not the same keyhole fundamentally. Things like that, I think, are quick judgments that some folks make. And then what I mean by that is there used to be, or maybe there still is in some places, there might be a stigma on Jodan players because there's not a lot of experience against them, that Jodan players show up and they get a few more Ippons, maybe more or less, doesn't matter, but maybe the animosity comes from not practicing against one, and then you fight one, you're like, oh, I didn't know how to do it, like, Jodan players, something like that. So that's personal. That's kind of that's on a person to person basis, but I think the biggest one is that you don't learn the same things.
Yes.
And what I mean is like your advanced applications of Seme and Sensen no Sen and all of these things, the Ibana, all those things go into play. Your footwork, your fumikomi, your yuko datotsu, everything is there. Just in a different format, shall we say.
Okay. Got you. Okay, so how about we transition now into start talking about Kamae? Okay, so you send me a video with Chiba Sensei. Okay, so I have this video right here. I don't think you can see my screen yet, right? I was supposed to send that to you, so give me 1 second, guys. Let me just do this for a second.
I'm seeing something on YouTube.
Yeah, but it's going to be delayed on when you see and what you hear. So I want to make sure that you get, let me share my screen. I should have done this earlier. I'm sorry, guys. So you should see my video right now. Okay, hold on, because I need to. Okay, I just need to set something up real quick. And there we go. We're right there. Okay. So the first thing, by the way, you sent me this video. The subtitles are hilarious.
Yeah.
So I just want everybody to know I didn't make the subtitles, but they're hilarious. So I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna break out first the Kamae, right? Guys, have to read the subtitles.
まず構え方ですが、中段の構えから左足を前に出し、そのまま上に取っていきます。左手は左前額部の一握り上ぐらいが基本的にいいとされています。
Okay, it's you guys can read the subtitles there because I guess my screen is not perfectly aligned with the video, but it says that it should be one fist away from your forehead. Okay.
Right. I would pause it right there, Jose.
Yes.
And then for all those out there who are thinking about it, you see that perfect triangle that Chiba Sensei has made with both of his arms, and his right arm is a little bit higher, but that's the triangle that you're looking for. There's a difference between bringing it out here and bringing it there, and you'll also notice where Chiba Sensei's right hand is, just like your friend down in California. It's closed. It's closed, and there's still the several elements that's the same as when you take Jodan, as to where your fingers are, where they're not gripped like this, they're still gripped in that aspect that we would have in Jodan.
Yeah, so it's literally, the way he's playing it is literally coming from Jodan into the Jodan, and then when up here, you do a little bit of an opening, right? You don't want to open up too high, you don't want to close in, right? You want to have a comfortable position of the arm, natural position of the arms, right?
Think of his shoulders as well. So his shoulders, like a lot of times, depending on what the focus of your senseis are, is your shoulders wants nice, straight, square. That's the scariest, when you fight someone and they have the square shoulders looking at you. But physically, when you have your your right arm a little bit more than your left, you have a little bit of a twist, and you'll still see the sensei has that. It doesn't mean his hips are twisting, but his upper body has moved over. His hips are still engaged forward.
Yes.
We'll see that.
I can feel that. Okay. Fernando, you were talking about the left hand, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because he was experiencing pain on the left hand. And maybe because the way that he was holding the shinai, if you can give me a little bit more detail, remind me, Fernando, how was it? Then I can bring that up to Jason. Okay, so when talking about the position here, we mentioned the fact that you want to avoid doing the pinky thing if you want to have more control of the direction where it's going to go, right? The kamae comes literally from Jodan, nothing changes. Anything else? Any other points from that?
Not right now, no.
Okay, and Fernando saying that yes, he was having problems with the left hand. This is something, and I guess we'll go over this in a second when we go striking. But I want to talk about also things to keep in mind to prevent injuries, right? So we'll talk about this in a second, because I'm thinking if you're having the kamae like this, you shouldn't develop any injuries from your kamae. Correct? This should be a very natural way. And one of the things that I need to make a video about this, but I need to make a video specifically about the importance of good kamae for your health, right? Because a lot of times, especially for Jodan, when you see beginners that they twist a little bit the left hand out, when they swing, what they do, they kind of open up the wrist in an uncomfortable and awkward position, and this can really hurt you, right? Same thing as overextending like this, right? Like hyperextending your wrist. That could be very, very painful and very dangerous. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Oh no, absolutely. You want to keep that wrist. I don't know exactly how it was, but if when you're here, maybe it's not as painful, but this is still more or less, and you can see it on Chiba Sensei, it's more or less a straight line with like a little bit of a bend. If you're bending at all, then possibly you're raising your too far up, or you don't want that. That's going to be painful when you come down. And then even when you do come down, just like you were saying, Jose, like you don't want to overextend.
Oh, you guys can see this. Go ahead.
You got to be careful about your wrist at the beginning. You're still building strength there.
Totally, yeah. Especially at the beginning, you don't want to do this when you don't have the flexibility and the strength yet. The one thing that you just mentioned, that's something I like to look at it this way. When I extend my shinai, I like it to be an extension of my arm rather than like if my hand is to the side, my shinai kind of breaks from my hand. So this is the way I think effective and good kamae allows you to transfer the energy that's coming from your feet, from your body, into the shinai. So if you disconnect, then that energy gets dispersed prematurely. Dasu says Chiba Sensei mentioned somewhere that he preferred his left pinky of the shinai. off. Okay, he prefers his left pinky off the shinai. Thoughts on that?
Well, if you can see, you can see the bottom
Yeah.
of the suka right there. Like, so we tend to put it about half on right there.
Yeah.
Catch the. I will hold mine just a little bit higher because what's the purpose of that one, Jose? Why do we do this one in Jodan?
So in my point of view, in my humble experience, you are using a two-handed sword, and the more separation you get between the two hands, the easier it's going to be to move the sword around, right? So especially, also you get better reach, right? Here we're already taking out the reach, not only how long the sword is, but also the angle in which the sword can extend. So
Okay.
here this is my thoughts, my 2 cents on that.
So I would almost say like maybe this might be happening with Fernando as well. If you're holding yours down here, that for Jodan that creates that little extra, that little extra flexibility. But for Jodan, you might not actually want that flexibility right now. We have to also remember that when Chiba Sensei made this video, he was a master of his craft. Had he made the video when he first started Jodan, I wonder where his finger was,
I see. Dasu says, okay, I think he says that he thinks that he was talking about that's a hard word for me. To maneuver the shinai, right? So talking about maybe he has the finger a little bit off or down the shinai for that ability to maneuver the shinai around.
Yeah, I just don't see. I'm trying to think right now, like I'm not sure I would use the word maneuver in my joke. It's not a lot of. I don't think there's as much maneuvering as there is in Jodan. Like we don't have a lot of Hikiwaza. We don't have a lot of Suriagewaza. We don't have a lot of matching up.
Yes.
Such as this, you need to kind of be able to move it real quick with that left arm, and then So I prefer to not have it off.
Yeah.
I prefer to have it just right there, and that's just me. But that doesn't mean you're wrong if you're putting it off there. Of course not. Of course not. There, like we've discussed, there are several avenues to create Kamae and Jodan.
Totally. I'm thinking as we talked about this, it's like, when you're in Jodan, you really have to pick your target and then shoot, right? You do get a little bit more forgiveness with the Jodan and be able to change your plan as you approach. With Jodan, I feel that when you make that commitment, you have to go full into it, and then hope you get it. And if you don't, then try to recover as fast as possible.
Right.
Okay, so let's keep going with Chiba Sensei. So Kensen slightly to the right. So, and we haven't really talked about the different Jodan stances, right? Because you can have the Hidari Jodan or Miki Jodan, right? So this is for Hidari Jodan, correct?
Yes.
With the left foot in the front. Yes, got a little bit of the tilt.
Correct.
So again, you guys, let me see if I can make the screen a little bit smaller, so that way you guys can see the whole full subtitles, because I tried to make it a little bit bigger. 1 second. So you guys cannot, there you go. There you go. So it's saying that you fight with the kote, tsuki, and do completely exposed. Okay, so before we're going to striking, obviously he mentioned that ability to be ready to fight simultaneously, to attack simultaneously. It does resonate to me with the elements you said about that position of fire, because literally we're coming, I think, right? Literally we're coming into the point where you literally defense with an attack.
Yes.
You don't you don't block, you don't deflect, you defend by attacking. This is normally one thing that I see from Jodan players, right?
Correct.
Your shield is your sword, literally.
All else fails, throw a min strike.
Okay, so let's.
Min is your.
Men is your what?
I was just gonna say, min is your rock. Min is your go-to. Min is your.
Yes.
If you get caught off guard, throw a min strike. You know.
Nice, nice. Okay, so let's watch the striking from Jodan.
目を打つ時には左足を出して手を押すんではなくて
He's
当たる
pushing
瞬
off.
間に
Not
引
push.
きます右手を引きます下っ腹にバン引きますこういう運動と
He's creating that twist.
Uh-huh.
You know, what he's describing is what I actually learned a long time ago. Is like almost as if you're gonna strike with a bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Create that twist as you notch your arrow and you come back. Like that's exactly what you're creating in Jodan as well. I will say that getting it started in the beginning, you know, that push is still there. You can still push, but some people do push. You push, but that twist is where a lot of your momentum and a lot of your speed from. So I think when we went back to a myth, when you asked about myths earlier in Jodan or things misunderstand sometimes, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have an incredible Hulk left arm. It doesn't mean you're like the strongest person with your left arm. What it means that you're also using your body and twisting and torquing, much like we would strike do sometimes as we were doing in Jodan. You know, you will torque in your body that creates a lot of that power, not necessarily your arms.
Interesting enough. Yeah, because you want to transfer that, as we talked about earlier, you want to transfer that energy from the bottom up and be able to create power, not with your hands, right? You want to put everything. What he said about you lower your abdomen, you lower your center of gravity, I think it relates to that, right? You don't hit just with the hand. You're trying to put the whole body into it to get a good, a good result. Let's talk a little bit about one thing I did want to say, because it's something that I see a lot, especially in Jodan, but I can see, especially when you say the whole thing with the push, it can be a bad habit transferring to Jodan as well. When we're doing in Jodan and you hit with both hands, you see a lot of beginners pushing off to hit with the right to create power, but especially I think it becomes a little bit more evident when you do it in Jodan, that if you pull, let me see what my camera is. If you pull with your left, it kind of serves as like a support, and it comes off. I don't have to push. I get more momentum by pulling out of my right hand rather than pushing with my right. Like this is faster than for me to push this way, and I have much more control and explosivity. So that being said, it is the same approach, because when I'm teaching people to bring their hands down, I teach them to not push with the right, but kind of just use the right hand as a support, as the hand and the hand follow the shinai, right? So similar, is this, trying to understand, is this concept similar for Jodan?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would agree 100%. As you go down, it's not so much, it's you're not going towards your opponent and then, or in that moment there, you're coming down. And that also goes to speak if you have like a lot of wrist problems or something when you start doing Jodan. Maybe that's because you're trying to like go fishing almost.
And
fishing, we're going straight at them, right?
Totally. And this is one of the things that I'm keeping you in mind through the whole time, and this whole week that I've been excited to do this stream on Jodan, because I'm really seeing the difference between the Nito Waza and the Jodan Waza. Because, and Ash said last week about, some people try to adapt Jodan into Nito, and this is not necessarily the best, more practical way of doing it, because the physics of the use of the shinai is very different. So in Jodan, you're using two hands to distribute the weight of the shinai at the beginning of the swing. For them, they're using their natural balance point to be the guiding force into the shinai. So it's a very different angle in which it's coming, right? I'm sure I'm doing it wrong, Ash, but I hope I'm getting the idea correctly.
No, that's a
But
great point. Yeah, because it is, from a just a standpoint of physics, you have more power coming down from Jodan, at least starting point.
yeah.
You have those two hands as a center. You have that support,
Hmm.
but so like it's just from there. So you have to be able to generate your power from a different circumstance. That's a great point.
But ultimately, too, the swing is different. The technique is different. It's I'm gonna make the analogy. A lot of people say that kendo and iaido and stuff like this, but I think that the swing in iaido, for example, is completely different than the swing in kendo. So it cannot be. I don't think it's comparable one with the other. Same thing here. It's two different swings, two different ways of moving the sword. I'm starting to see the these connections, and I'm excited. It is very interesting. Okay, so we talked about striking. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we need to do in order to prevent injuries from, overuse, abuse, and proper form in order to prevent injuries for Jodan. How is the striking, the mechanics of hitting? You can explain a little bit, but if you maybe can, break down a little bit from Kamae, from up Kamae to striking point. What are some of the things to keep in mind to avoid injury?
Okay, so I think it was already touched on like a little bit earlier.
A little bit. We talked a little bit about that.
That's why I really love the warm-ups that we have currently in our dojo, because what we do a lot of is we do a lot of one hand strikes, just to kind of get an idea of how to engage that left arm and that left hand, that left wrist, so that you don't overextend. And one of the things that we do is even with a Jodan standpoint is we'll come up here and we'll do our normal thing from Jodan, and we'll come down and we'll stop, and we'll notice that we're going to keep that kind of engagement, and not this, not like this, or nothing bent. We come down and we keep a nice firm straight line, and we keep that wrist locked as much, and we feel a lot of pressure right in this area here, and it's this one would line back up to just above our solar plexus, right in here, so that when we bring our right arm into it, we kind of have that same nice straight line. I would say keeping that, especially at the beginning and even near as you progress in Jodan, would be also advantageous, because when you come down, you don't want to break that wrist. You still want to come down like this, because what's going to happen the first time you miss your point, the first time you miss your strike, you're going to go down, because you put all your weight on that shinai, and you focus on getting that shinai there first, and you've lost focus on keeping this and moving your everything together. So you end up going and breaking down like that, and that ends up being very painful for wrists, for elbows, and possibly other parts of your arm as well. So I would focus on making sure you keep that technique as crisp as possible in the beginning, especially when you're just hitting men over and over. Constantly cutting, make a strong strike, make a strong ippon, but focus on stopping. And that's why I said earlier, Jose, it's important to do your Jodan min strikes as well in your warm-ups, because you need to build that stopping point for Jodan, because you're not just going, if you don't, then you're just going to only think you're going to hit, and you're going to end up breaking down right there, and that's where you're going to get in trouble, because you'll get left behind, your feet will stop, your kamae is totally broken, and you're vulnerable.
I understand. So just to make sure that... Sorry.
That's just for the arm. There are other parts of the body that you also have to be considerate of not hurting yourself. But let's finish talking about the arm, and then I'll move to another part.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that many people, when they start picking up Jodan, I see that yes, they're so focused on hitting so fast and throwing that tip forward that they do end up hyperextending the wrist, making it a little bit of a dangerous situation. The way I like to focus on it, and not necessarily for Jodan, but in general, I don't try to focus on trying to just drop the tip in there, but instead of throwing it forward, right? And I think if we keep watching a little bit of the Chiba Sensei video, he does mention, you want to end with your arm in front of you, right? Front of the solar plexus. So this is very similar to what we do in regular Chudan.
Yes, correct. And I would also, these skills are transferable, and also these problems are transferable.
Okay.
You have a Chudan player that's worried about getting their sword there first, then they end up breaking their posture and they start leaning forward as they go, and they leave their bottom half behind. Their top half is already leaning forward because they're trying to get their shinai there first. This is similar in Jodan. You want, if you're trying to get your shinai there first, you'll break your posture, you bend your back, and your bottom half stays behind. If you're driving, if you're creating with your body, and you're moving forward with your body, then you will create, you'll get there just fine, and then you can focus on your swing being a lot stronger as well.
Cool. What other parts of the body should we be careful, should we be mindful to avoid injury?
Okay, so you got to be careful when you switch. If you're doing Chudan right now and you switch to Jodan, that first fumikomi on that left foot it's gonna sting. It's gonna sting, and it's gonna continue to sting. So you have to kind of work your way up to, and I'm still working on mine. I'm still working on getting mine as crisp as I possibly can to get that kind of like flapping sound, right? You have to be careful of that. Start small, be mindful of your heel, keep your toes down, things like that as you go through. And then also your right leg, particularly your Achilles on your right, and also your right knee. Mm-hmm. Probably more of your, I can't remember what's on the inside, your ACL or something. One of those parts because in Jodan, when your feet, sometimes you'll see it where they're just, sometimes I'll take a straight approach, because in Chudan we take a straight approach. Mm-hmm. Our feet are straight, right? We're pointing towards our opponent, and even some cases, our back left foot is turned like a little bit more inwards. Some senseis like to teach that as well. But in Jodan, typically we stick to what's, or I stick to what's in the kata, right? Mm-hmm. We learn the kata where you turn that right foot a little bit more, and that's more of a traditional stance maybe, but you have to understand that if you're not used to doing that, you're also going to be using more of the inside muscles all the way up your leg.
Yes, and you want to use more of the outside. Injuries.
When we twist our leg, it can be pretty dangerous. And again, your Achilles, always make sure you're stretching your Achilles out. Give yourself plenty of opportunities to jump up and down before you start throwing these new strikes that your body's not used to.
Yes. Piggybacking or going back to the fumikomi thing, one of the things I always say for either foot that you're doing fumikomi is to not focus on doing it hard when it comes to the sound. You can do it hard when it does to the function. The function of fumikomi is not to be loud. The function of fumikomi is to get you to move forward. So you can use your leg to pull you, but don't focus that when somebody says strong fumikomi, don't focus on hitting the floor hard.
Yes.
I can tell you this, and maybe further research is needed on this topic, but the sound of the fumikomi comes from our feet or from our foot changing. The anatomy of the foot changes, and this is why you get more of that clap sound on the floor. With the other foot, you can tell immediately that even if you do it carefully and land it carefully on the floor, it sounds different. And I think it has to do with how our body starts changing as we do Kendo over the years. So
absolutely, and I do, yeah. So every kenshi has a different sound, I think, as well. But yeah, no, that's a great point. It's not. I honestly, I find myself a little surprised because I never thought about it that way. And now that I hear that, I'm like, oh, like game changer. Like, okay, it's not the sound. It's all right. Thank you very much for that.
No problem. This is one of the biggest ones for me because I remember a while back, a friend of mine, when I was in Japan, he was telling me, do a stronger fumikomi. And I was like hitting the floor harder. And then he stopped me and said like, no, don't hit the floor harder. Use your legs stronger, pull yourself. And this is what fumikomi is for. Fumikomi is not for hitting the floor. fumikomi is to keep the momentum going and to have a good follow through and transfer the energy from the previous step. So, just food for thought there.
A mind blown look on my face because I was like, that's what I love about Kendo, and I'm sure you as well. Like we practiced for years and years and years, and we still learn these little things. Like, I never thought about it like that. Like, oh wow, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so let's watch. I think Shiva Sensei still has a little bit more time on his instruction, so let's watch a little bit more of that.
一緒です。こういう運動と一緒。この左手は
Oh, this is where you were talking about the bow thing, right? Like you want to create that extension there.
右手の開きがあるからこっちがより開く。こういう使い方ですね。打つというのは左手の引きがあるからスピードをつく。この引き手があるから
I like that. Yeah.
Zoom.
This is great.
So a few weeks back, maybe I think like 2 weeks, I posted a video on speed, right? To becoming faster in Kendo. And it's not necessarily being faster when it comes to physical ability, but polishing your technique to the point that you're more efficient, right? So I always say that the last point of speed is going to be the tenouchi, right? Because it's a little extra that the sword gets, a little extra speed. But I'm seeing something from the Jodan technique, right? And it's this point that he just explained last. You get a little bit of extra added speed at the end with this motion of opening the arms, correct?
Yes.
So let me do like a frame by frame here. So if you see as he comes down.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah, you can see it. It's just.
So he's coming down at one speed. The sword is coming down at one speed here first. Then when he does here, more or less he already engages the tenouchi, maybe like 2 frames before that. But then after that, he also adds that extra, like the 1-inch punch, right, from Bruce Lee. Like, there.
Right. No. Right. Yeah. In fact, like whenever I was struggling in Korea and understanding how to swing Jodan, my instructor finally said, "Hey, yeah, the interchangeable word was boxing." He was like, throw a jab, like just do that instead of coming down in a big huge arc. And my hand was literally doing this like when I was starting it off.
Yeah.
He was like, throw a jab, go straight at it. That's
you want to be efficient. And let me play this again because I talked to you, I played the video, but nobody in the stream saw it. So this is what I was talking about. And well, nobody said anything, so maybe everybody's asleep. Just kidding. So right here you can see how Chiba Sensei goes zoom. Okay, he starts the motion with the hands and the body. Well, he started with the body, then engages the hands. Then at this point, he started engaging the tenouchi, and then that extra little punch with the body, with that extension of, one hand pulling and the other hand throwing, right?
I can see, even though it's it's an older video, I can see like his area of his wrist right here, like up as he strikes, just like really coming down on it. It's a beautiful strike.
Steven says he never thought about it being a jab. Of course, it's not going to be the traditional jab that you see boxers throw, right? But it's just the concept of it, right, Jason? Just want to make sure I'm not saying things wrong.
Like, essentially, your hand is going from here, and it's so what's the difference between a boxer doing this and then going to the same position? It's not the same, of course not. But like at that time,
like the end interval, it's right. What we're talking about here. Discipline equals freedom. So I'm gonna call you discipline just because too many words in your name. Thank you for passing by. And it says it's a vertical jab. It's kind of like a vertical jab. Yeah, I can understand that because it's coming from the top and then throwing in. Of course, I did a horrible job at presenting that, but. That's what we're talking about. Okay, let's see what we have next from Chiba Sensei.
次に上段からの面固定打ち方と相手との攻め合いをやってみます。 面の角度は左手がだいたい父の高さぐらい。
So when cutting men, the left hand should be at the chest height. Normally, when I'm explaining this, just to be a little bit more precise, more specific, I tell people the solar plexus, right? Don't go below the solar plexus. As a matter of fact, I try to not go below the solar plexus for any technique, right? Because you want to have full extension away from your body. Christina, thank you for passing by. And okay.
こういうのが一番
This is what we're talking about here, right? It's different.
Yeah.
I like how they said this is the baddest example.
Yes. Yes, that's the worst.
この高さ。
Okay, this is a very interesting. Let me talk about this. We talked about transferable skills from Jodan into Chudan, and this one is a very big one that I feel people don't talk about enough, and it's that relaxation after a strike. You can see how he hits the right target, the right distance, and everything with a very strong impact. But then right after, guess what happens? He relaxes the fingers, but the arm stays, engaged. Correct? So at this point, he has the arm engaged, but the wrists are relaxing, and that's what you can see that the tip comes up. So I really like this firm position right here, where he has a forward intention to the opponent, but he's also engaged. If the opponent went back, for example, in this opportunity, he can hit again from this position.
Yes, he
Right?
could. Yeah, and I've seen that. I think that's why I talked earlier about Kim Tae-hyun being one of my favorite Jodan players, because he's the only one I've seen. I'm sure it's out there. He's the only one I've seen that's done a one-handed kote and then right men. Right after that, as that kind of engagement still, he just went down and then it was right there, and he just went forward again. Man, like right, and I was, oh, yeah, that's amazing. So think about that, and also, so this whole dynamic that Chiba Sensei has set up for those thinking about getting into Jodan or thinking about like, you know what, I just want to strike a little bit. It's really cheap to build like a just kendo dummy. You get a bucket, some concrete, like a 4x4 piece of wood, and a tire, and you just drill that tire in there. You can just sit there and hit that tire all day long. You can do it on a yoga ball. I've done it on a yoga ball before, just to kind of get an idea of how to create that tension and how to create like how it hits, how it's going to feel when it hits. It might be a little helpful to do that a couple of times before you go into your first practice doing Jodan.
Totally. Listen, I'm struggling right now because I don't have a practice target at home, and they're so essential. You know, I need to actually, if anybody has some suggestions on building one that is inside of the house friendly, you know, because I thought about the concrete thing, but I think that will be more for like the backyard and things like that. Yeah, inside the house, it will be kind of like, I'm looking for something, if possible, that you can like, you know, fold at some point or something. I'm thinking of designing something. But
Any engineers out there, hit up Jose.
yeah, any advice actually? Okay.
コテはこの剣線が
Beautiful. Oh man, this is the hard
これから
one to say.
外れてたらコテ打てません。つまりこのもうちょっと剣線を下ろして、この剣線をただこのままじゃ今言ったように打てませんから、この剣線をこの中に内側に入れます。入れたらここが入ります。剣線をこちらが勝手に出すんじゃなく、こっちが勝手に行くんじゃなくて、足を使って左足を使ってスーッと左前の方に盗み入ります。スッ、その時にメイクぞとこう上げなくていいけど、メイクぞって見せて外す。打った瞬間にはこういう角度になります。こうやって打った瞬間に発字正しくですね、発字正しく打つと、こういう角度で入っていきます。攻防です。
Okay, so now he's gonna talk about seme in a second here, right? I kind of want to break down a little bit of the kote. I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I wouldn't, if I'm teaching somebody Jodan, I wouldn't teach this kote first. I think morote kote becomes a little bit more useful, correct?
Yes. So I will say that while at the first tournament I ever took Jodan at in Korea, I did score a kote ippon. It was nothing like this though. I would advise against that. I would actually just go men, 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 and when you have a good idea of like how a men feels, then do morote kote. Like work on that two-handed kote, and then see if you get your feet to go the same way. This is very advanced, even though it's just seemingly a simple waza. It's not, because there's several applications, and that kind of ties in to earlier of when to start Jodan. Like if you're not at a level to where you can move your feet undetected like that, and B, create that kind of tension in Semen, and understand that his posture doesn't break at all, right? You also have to understand now's a good time to mention the defense against Jodan, because he mentioned keeping, if you're a good defender against Jodan or attacker, if you want to look at it that way, like your shinai is placed in a manner to where they couldn't just come straight down on your kote.
Yeah.
Or your men in some cases. So yeah, this is very advanced. I agree with you 100%, Jose. I would not, if I were teaching someone how to do Jodan, I would not start kote until we enter the intermediate stages.
This kote, I think this kote is extremely hard, extremely difficult, and very risky, right? High chances you will not get it, and high chances that you will not be able to do anything if you miss it, right? I'm gonna catch up with the comments, but I see that Jan is here. Actually, Jan pointed this out when we were watching the European Championships this year. So we did a live stream where we all watched it together and talked in a chat and so on. But he pointed out that we had a lot of Jodan players in the European Championship, especially in the juniors division, and they were holding on to their life for men and morote kote, right? This was like the main two techniques, or if anything, the old techniques that they tried, that they did. But I do think, and I got a little bit of confirmation from this player that I told you from California, that she said that the first thing that they teach you to go to a tournament is these two techniques, just men and morote kote. That if you can do these two techniques and able to score ippon in those two techniques, you can go into a tournament and start, holding your weight for this. This kote that we just watched from Chiba Sensei, she completely says that don't even try it at the beginning. You get your basics together first before anything else, because it can be very risky.
Yes.
So let me catch up with some of the comments that we had here. Discipline, you said that you will say the left hand jabs at the tsukidare. The left hand makes the base of the triangle. So when you say the triangle, you mean at the moment of the impact? I'm guessing the triangle between the angle of the sword, I think, of the path of the sword. Maybe give me a little bit more explanation what you mean by that. But I also heard this version of it, right? Like kind of jab to the tsukidare. No, the tsukidare. Oh, wait. You said tsukidare?
Yeah. Oh. So maybe he's talking about jabbing towards your opponent's skin.
Okay. Maybe making that the target. But I don't like to give that image personally. And you tell me, Jason, what you think about this. I don't like to do that, because then you might end up with a higher man that you should, a higher angle on your left hand. I think the target should be, with the sword into the totsubu with the totsubui. I feel it gets complicated if we start thinking about all these other elements.
Yeah, I think that's above our pay grade.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying when teaching it to beginners, I don't like to use these specific analogies. Unless it's something very specific that you're trying to fix or whatever, because again, it could create a lot of misinterpretation. Yes. I like to keep it simple. I like to keep it as simple as possible. Jan, you said hi. Hi, Jan. How you doing? Okay, to go to the classifieds and secondhand purchase a ball to strap to spare men on. Oh, a punching ball to strap to practice men. He got one for the kids that are great and suitable for indoors. Jan, if you could send a picture of that to the Discord when you have some time, that would be really cool to see how that's set up, and I will definitely go and try it. And Discipline says, do some push-ups and pull-ups to build up arm strength so you don't have to rely on morote kote. And he says that jokingly. But I think it goes beyond that. I think morote kote is a very deceptive technique. I think that's what makes it so successful, right? In my experience, it's not only deceptive in the sense that you have more control now on the shinai, so you can change, you have more forgiveness to the angles that you can hit, but then also you have the thing that you're switching your feet as well. So you also mess with the distance and the timing of the technique. So it's a very powerful yet somewhat simple technique to start picking up on the early on stages of your Jodan play, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I would not, like I said earlier, I wouldn't. If I felt like somebody could grasp it, case by case basis, I would teach it. But I mean, if you would think, what's a waza and chudan that you would not want to teach to a beginner? Like I probably would not be jumping right into kaishido or something like that.
Yeah, correct.
Like I probably, honestly, for beginners, I might lean back on just doing men and kote instead of even going into do and ski yet. You know what I mean? So
yes, correct.
There's a time that's probably going to be perfect to go over that waza, and that's not at the beginning.
The one thing that I always try to is to make sure that you want to pass on the techniques at the level they're on and trying to connect one for the next. Morote kote can be easy to understand better than katate because again, if you're coming from chudan, you understand how to move your shinai for the kote, the right timing for the fumikomi and so on. So I think it's a little bit easier to connect to something that we already know. And the katate kote can be very tricky, especially on that, what you said, on that stepping at the beginning. That's the hardest part, I think.
Yeah, it seemed like a perfect segue to go into defense against Jodan Jose, because I think we could actually talk about both sides on this one.
Correct. Let's finish the video with Shiba Sensei because he's talking about seme, and this is something I want to talk about before we go into the Shiai portion of our stream. And it's how you communicate with each other, right? The communication becomes a little bit more, I don't want to say nonverbal because all the communication in Kendo, I guess most of the communication in Kendo is nonverbal, but I'm saying you don't have that connection with the shinai, right? So let's watch this video and then you give us your thoughts on seme.
Yeah, you got it.
相手がつくぞっていう見せて、つくぞと。この時に突き見せて、降りると全部こっちがガラ空きになってしまいます。こっちが相手に打突は機会を与えてしまいます。これをこうで落とすつもりで打つ。トン。こう来るこのラインに左と右。と突きが外れるし面が入ってこれは流れていきます。それから相手が固定にやってる。これも出頭あるいは小手来て抜くのも上に抜きます。小手来るのが明らかに分かればパン出頭目ですね。そういうつまり中段の方はどこを攻めるかって言ったらまず突きと固定行くぞ突きつくぞっていう攻め方が定石になってきますからまずそれに対する対処をしっかり覚えておくと。あとは間の攻防です。近すぎてもまずい遠すぎても片手技はなかなか有利になる。非常に難しいんですが本当に上段には上段の微妙な間合いっていうのがあります。そこのところをしっかり勉強すれば分かります。疲れる打たれる同時内でねしっかり疲れたり打たれたりしてるうちに覚えてきますので、構えを崩さない打たれたくないってこういうふうに打たれたくない構えを崩さず堂々としてどっからでも来いっていう
Bring it on, mama.
But like I can't fault the person who came up with that because that's the mentality you need to have. Like
that's so true. So I kind of one of the things that I picked up from what Chiba Sensei just said is that position of fire that you mentioned before. You want to have that position that your attack is going to be not only your attack but also your defense. Right? This is, I think, one of the things that makes the Jodan mentality so special. And I think one of the biggest things that will help your Chudan, especially when you're that player that always comes in covering and trying to do something. I feel that this mentality is so strong and it can give you so much more benefits in the long run than just coming in with a safety net before you attack, right?
Right. That's absolutely right.
What I was gonna say. So tell us a little bit about how do you approach that communication with your partner? How can you, number one, okay, so you're preparing yourself for your Godan, and one of the things that is always talked about to show during your Godan is learning to control your opponent, learning to pressure and semi your opponent to the point where you're gonna break their kamae and have an opportunity. So how do you do this from Jodan?
Okay, so first I'll start actually from the end because Shiba Sensei, the last thing he mentioned was Mai and distance. I feel like knowing distance, and I mean it just makes so much sense now. If you have an understanding of the kata that we perform, that first ippon mei, and like understanding your striking distance. It's ironic that it just happens to be that that's both Jodan players. You have to understand your Mai and where you are in relation to your opponent and how much sime you can actually project onto them. If I'm really far away, sure, like I have more of a reach possibly, but I also am not that much of a threat. Unless I'm certain senseis, they are very much a threat no matter what. But on the basis of it all, like if I'm very far away from you, even in Chudan, like if I'm coming from Toma or something like that, I'm not as much of a threat as if I'm moving more into Isoku or whatnot, right? So that's the first thing I would say. Got to get to a point to where you're not too close to where you're losing a lot of that power because of the distance that you're at. You're not going to give yourself an opportunity to get a good ippon because you're too close. But you also have to make sure that tension's there, and it's a fine line, it's a fine threshold. But that's one of the things I focus on as well.
One of the things with distance specifically for me is that Jodan has the advantage that it has more reach, but again, when you have more reach, you also have more travel time, which makes you more predictable to a counter, right? So you have to really understand your distance and how and when to attack, especially from Jodan, I feel like. What are... Go ahead.
I was gonna go into the next one. It's not so much, ki is ki, that will help as well. But when you're in that position of Chudan and Chudan, like you said, not that communication between shinai and shinai. There's not that much manipulation going on, control going on. There's not that same battle going on from the center. However, in Jodan, there are subtleties that a Jodan player will do as they go through, and you'll see them in many matches as you start to watch them. Sometimes they'll raise up a little bit. Sometimes they'll tense up a little, like here, a lot of arm movement, wrist movement, something like. And other times, just like a stone cold Chudan player, sometimes it'll just be right here. And feel that pressure.
Yeah.
Start to come in on you a little bit more and more. And yeah, so those are really three of the things I would focus on. Is my sword work now. My communication is now going to come through where that flame would be flickering right up here. That's going to come right up there now, and my tension is starting to build up there. And then as far as manipulating footwork, like Chiba Sensei was alluding to in the kote, like you have to be able to move in a manner, just like in Judan too, so subtly that you're not giving away, but you're also moving your opponent into a position that you want them to be in. So as Chiba Sensei slightly moved to the left first, creating his opportunity for kote, then he struck kote. There's other ways to do that as well, but that's the big ones.
So as you explain your approach into closing the distance, how to put pressure on your opponent, you can see how favorable can be to understand these elements from a Jodan position, because here you are forced to intimidate. Maybe intimidate is the wrong word, but you're learning literally how to make the opponent make a mistake, either by backing up or attacking when they're not ready. So this is one of the things I like. This is why I ask you, in the physical aspect, what do you do? Because this subtleties is going to lead you to understand how to control your opponent. I feel like. So it does give me a lot of ideas for myself to start implementing this into my Chudan. So it all starts, I think, with your body, right? Like maybe later on you learn the more the higher level aspects of seme. But I think at a base level, understanding how to use your body to control your opponent, it's essential, especially from Jodan, right?
Yes, it is.
Especially because you have very little openings, right, against somebody with Jodan, right? So you have to find distance, timing, and also intimidating from the get go, right?
Right, and it comes back to the difficulty of testing in Jodan as well, because if you're not used to that kind of relationship and building that communication between two, it can create some missed opportunities and inabilities to show what you're really made of, what you can really do to manipulate or to control your opponent.
Totally. Discipline says only time to do morote kote is when your mind is too close from usual Jodan Kamae. What are your thoughts? I have my opinion, but I wanna hear yours, Jason.
Well, okay, I kind of agree with that. Too close from usual Jodan Kamae. Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way you would create. I'm just reading it over and over again to make sure I understand it correctly. In a way, as close as you are, you probably have more opportunity for morote kote to make more sense and to be more crisp and to execute it as well. However, it's just like what if you're in Jodan and you have someone that we have this distance here, but this person is able to very stealthily move in, smack kote. Like, can that not still happen in Jodan? It can, I think so. So how your advanced footwork, if you're talking about striking from zero, without any steps, yeah, I think he's right. I think you're right. This one, that's a good point. If you're talking about,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're talking about being able to, if you're moving and you're fluid in a match and you're not always just right there or right there, you work your way into your opponent and create that opportunity. So it really depends on how you're doing it.
One thing I have a little bit of disagreement with that is that, especially because you're coming from up high and you're that close, I think the Jodan becomes very dangerous, right? You can definitely feel the pressure when a Jodan gets too close to your distance. Yes. And I think it's easier for a Jodan player, an experienced Jodan player, to get your kote before you get their kote, then you have opportunities to come down all the way in and even challenging your men as you're coming down for kote, right? By the time you're coming down, they might be able to just move the kote out of target and going for the men. Right. For what it was shared to me by the Ariga Sensei's intern, which I cannot remember her name, like I feel so bad. But one thing that she was sharing with the morote kote is, number one, is going to be the anticipation, right? You use it against people that are defending. So morote kote is highly effective. And this is one of the reasons, maybe we'll talk about this in a second, how to fight against Jodan, how to not fight against Jodan. I feel that this is useless against Jodan players, right? Because of that morote kote. This is right there, this is giving you a free ippon. So
I highly advise against not taking such a stance against an experienced Jodan player. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Steven, yes, Risako. Thank you very much, Steven. So Risako is the name of the Ariga Sensei's intern. So I guess I'll be referencing to her because it's my most recent experience with Jodan. And one of the things that, I figured out that this is useless against Jodan because that morote kote can come from here, and then because you have that control, you can come in a very different angle, and that's a easy point for a Jodan player. The other thing is that because you can switch the footwork, you can also get a little bit of extra reach mid approach. So I think it's a little bit more versatile than just using it when you're close. Yes, it could be a good, as a matter of fact, for that matter, just going for men with both hands could also be useful at that point. At that point, you can switch from Jodan into, I guess, a Jodan strategy, and it's a little bit different, right? I'm guessing.
That's right. Got a great comment from Dasu in there. Jose, Shinsa for Jodan is rather a morote-free environment for both men and kote, isn't it? I think that's dependent on the Jodan player. That's a great point, though. I think traditionally speaking, your stereotypical, if there is such a thing, stereotypical Jodan player is going to be more katate, and it's going to be more one-handed waza. However, it really depends on the Jodan player you're playing. If you ever happen to fight against me, you'll see a little bit of everything.
You try to keep it diverse.
Yeah, you don't really know exactly what's coming, and that's part of the. I guess we go back. That's part of an advantage, Jodan as well. Changeability, and it's coming out of Chudan. Chudan, we still have an application. In fact, the other day at Keiko, I was just kind of, I was trying to throw some seme down, and I did it pretty well, and then I saw my opportunity as I went up and just immediately threw katate min, and just poof, it landed. So there is some interchangeability there, but I think Jodan, you can incorporate a lot of Chudan techniques into your Jodan.
Totally.
First and stronger.
Discipline. You talked about if you feel someone close in Jodan Kamae, you do harai even if it's not an accurate harai to keep the pressure off of you. So let me just ask, just to make sure I understand it, and maybe we can pass this to Jason. Do you mean that you are in Jodan or your opponent is in Jodan, number one? And how you do the harai? Like you do harai, if you're in Jodan, I'm guessing, you can come down for the harai, because I guess the harai against Jodan, they're up here. It's not, you cannot do harai, right? Okay, so you're in Jodan. So I'm guessing, would that be called harai, Jason, when you come up here, or it's like ushotoshi, right? Like
my sensei calls it harai as well. I guess
okay.
It really depends on the Chudan player or whoever you're fighting, and where the intentionality is. It sounds to me, and this one, please comment if I'm wrong on this one. So it's too close, and your opponent is in the process of thinking like, all right, I'm going to attack.
Yeah.
And you're just out and just kind of giving a check.
Yeah.
If you will, hockey term, give him a check on that shinai, just to let him know and break the tension, reset if possible. I'm not sure I would necessarily call it harai, but I cannot see why it should not be called harai.
And and this is the point of Kendo, that sometimes we get too hung up in words. So we understand. I think we understand what you're saying.
I would think uchi-otoshi, just because I'm thinking of the waza that we study. Uchi-otoshi min. It seems a little more appropriate, but still, why?
Gotcha. So, how about we go into a little bit of shiai?
Yeah.
Right. So you sent me a video, Jason. Hold on, give me a second. You sent me a video with Shodai, but the quality was a little bit too bad, so I kind of switched it up on you. I got another video of Shodai, because of course I knew you wanted to showcase Shodai against Teramoto. Which, he's one of my favorite senseis. And in this one, he also scores 2 points against Teramoto. But then I also got another video where he loses it. So we kind of want to see both parts. Any advice on how to fight against Jodan, first of all?
Okay. It's different for everyone. You just kind of have to figure out what's going to be good for you. I want you to think in terms of a triangle, because that's what a Jodan player will create. Ultimately, they will create a triangle. So this being the sides of my triangle here, when you're thinking about where to place your Kinzen, I want you to think about how to get it just outside that triangle and not too far inside that triangle. So there's the one that's, like you said, like all the way over here, that's just kind of obnoxious. Like that's not even close to being anywhere near a triangle. If you use it, you know how to use it, don't feel like we're saying that's wrong, but at the same time, in terms of a good solid offensive opportunity, this one presents the least amount. You're basically waiting for them to try and hit men so you can just do suriage something, and maybe other things. I still tend to try to get a good angle of it, but it's not working out very well. Try my best. So if I'm lining up, it would look something like this when I'm looking at someone.
Okay.
Because I would be up here, and then my right arm would be right there, and that Kinsaki would be pointing at that kote here, just a little bit on the outside. That's the way I like to do it. And some people like to point at it. Some people like to pick the line that they think the Jodan player is going to come down on, and have it right there, so that it's just be mindful in the dojo that this is probably one of the more painful things a Jodan player can experience is when they come down and your Kinsen is right there.
Yeah.
Just be mindful of your dojo mates, right? We want everybody to leave practice in one piece.
Yes.
But a very strategic way of defending, right? Because the Jodan player senses that there. So again, just to repeat, your Jodan player will typically make a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to keep your shinai especially the Kinsen, Kinsaki, just outside of that triangle, but just enough to where you're going to pose a threat. So if it's a better terminology to use the edge of the triangle, I don't recommend going straight up.
Mm-hmm.
I fought against people that do that. I don't recommend going in some modified Jodan No Kamae. I don't recommend trying to lure too much, unless you know what you're doing.
Totally.
I think basics right there.
If I can add to another Kendo tip to fight against Jodan, I think it's very essential to have the skill to hit. Maybe I can make the camera bigger for myself for a second. I think it's very essential to learn how to hit without cocking back too much, without making so much of an upswing all the time, getting a good impact with full extension as you go from your kamae into the target, rather than making such a big path to hit, because you're gonna have very, very, very little time to get that kote, right? And if you have very little time to get that kote, but you also have to be very very solid on your impact. So if you learn how to do this, you can catch a lot of Jodan players by surprise in one of the mistakes when maybe they close the distance. You're able to quickly come in and get that quick impact without wasted movement. I think it's essential to fight against Jodan. At the very least, to let them know that you can do it. If you miss that kote, then now they become more like, oh, whoa. Like, chill, I don't wanna get hit there, right? So this is my tip. Learn to attack directly without any wasted movement. Be able to get a solid impact with a straight line into the target. And then you can start diversing into like the other kote, pressuring one side to go somewhere else. But I think being able to attack sharply and quickly without wasted movement, I think is essential. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jose, because then this also brings up, like, why is it beneficial for your dojo? Because if you're doing Jodan, then now you can actually stop, and now that Jodan player gets an opportunity to do some kotewaza, some shikakewaza against a Jodan player to approach that, to get that. So the Jodan player gets it because they get to learn how it's going to look when it comes at them, and then the Jodan player gets good practice because they get to actually work on making that strike. It's a great opportunity for learning for all.
Totally. Okay, so we have this video of Teramoto and Shodai. Let's play a little bit of it. Let's see how it goes. Okay, let me know if it's too loud for you guys. So Shodai's on the left, Teramoto's on the right.
Look at his hands as he moves up and down. Like they're communicating for certain.
Ooh. So, okay, the video is a little bit. It's like 10 minutes, so they went the full fight in here. But this is a very nice exchange. You're talking about that communication between how they move, how they go forward and back. So thank you, Jan, to confirming the sound is good. This is a little bit of kind of what you were talking about, that defense, waiting for that man, right? to do suriage. And it's interesting how Teramoto immediately after he gets that, he goes for kote immediately. Didn't get the ippon, but again, this is one of the biggest things I feel in kendo. You want to have the mentality of countering rather than blocking and stopping, right? So yeah, Jan, yes, it's a real shame what happened with Shodai. Yes, we'll keep it a mystery for those who don't know. So you see, because of the distance, when he keeps a healthy distance, let's say it, it's easier for Teramoto to deflect, right?
Uh-huh. You're right.
But then again, Shodai is really amazing at recovering. So that's why he cannot really rush in.
And just the variation of the Kamae as well from what we looked at Chiba Sensei. Shodai Sensei, left hand just a little bit further out from his forehead, is not as high, and his angle of his shinai is just a little bit big. Well, see how it goes off to that far end there. It's
yes.
Really, he's found his comfortable Kamae, and he's stuck with it.
Also, you can see a little bit of like that disconnection between the shinai and the right fist. But I'm going to say this: I believe it's more of I think it's more because of the angle that he has on the shinai rather than him choosing to rest that sword on the thumb, right? At least at this moment. So maybe at one point we can explore a little bit of why he chooses to go so far out. Oh, by the way, Discipline says that he remembers talking to Chiba Sensei and Chiba Sensei referring to Shodai's Jodan style as helicopter style. That's funny. I can see that with the whole like the twisting thing to like come back up.
Interesting.
You see that double technique right there? There's a lot of upper body movement coming from Shodai, right? Like this is how, what you said, he's trying to get an opening.
Sure.
Very, very close.
So he moved in. You can tell, so that was the question that I think Discipline brought up earlier. Is like the distance of Morote. Look at that. He moved himself in a position where he could actually achieve that Morote. But he started off far. Awesome. Ooh.
I understand Discipline. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, Jason just mentioned that's the Moroto you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Jan, yes, and that's another topic that maybe we can make a little bit of we can analyze that for the center. I don't know if we're gonna have time on this stream. If not, we can leave it for the next stream. Using the center of gravity of the shinai to move the shinai, because the swing that Jan just mentioned right now, he used the physics of the shinai a little bit different. He used it more like Ash was explaining last week about Nito. So we can explore that as well, how that can be useful. And now he wakes up.
Yeah.
Oh, 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 oh.
I mean, he's feeling it. You can tell, like, they start in the center of the frame. Hiramoto just keeps pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. It's like it's very small movements. And
Teramoto.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
And that's another thing, right? To fight against Jodan, you need to, overpower that fire that they're giving, right? If you're going back, you're bait, I guess. Like you're food for them. I always find interesting this exchange, and I'm sorry that it has nothing to do necessarily about Jodan, but if you see this exchange right here after they separate, I think because of the mentality that Teramoto has right now to try to be the one with more fire, the one with more pressure, more in control. He's making Shodai go back, look, and then he steps in towards him.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're not going anywhere." But he can also go ahead.
I was gonna say, remind me about that. I'll mention that in the tips against fighting Jodan.
Cool. And the other thing that I feel, another strategy that I think is very useful against Jodan is to not let them rest, right? And I think
I was gonna say, like, don't give them a moment to breathe. All right, you want to frustrate that Jodan player as much as you can. So, like 30 or 45 seconds ago, Shodai was so frustrated that he switched to Chudan and just kind of just blind like a Kote man, like really fast, really close, like just to be like, hey, get off me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, don't give up an inch on that.
yes. This is a great. Okay, I'm gonna write down the time. We're gonna go over a couple points. I'm writing down timestamps on this, so we can go back to some of these points. We can talk about this ippon individually.
Oh, jeez.
He's so explosive, very explosive.
Yes.
Jan, have a good night, man. Thank you for passing by. You're always welcome over here. Remember to send me that picture if you can of your setup for indoor practice.
Mm.
You see, now he's using that thread of the morote kote to make an opening,
Mm-hmm.
making him go back. I feel like at that moment, Teramoto had to do something to kind of wake up, because that was a moment of, like, he got caught sleeping for a second, right?
Close. That was really close.
But right now, Shodai is playing against the clock right now, so I guess it's starting to show a little bit of that
Heat is on.
extra pressure, yeah.
There it is. That's what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The harai that just talking about popping them down when you feel that pressure.
For me, it's also not only about diffusing the pressure, but also trying to gauge the reaction of your opponent, right? As you're coming in. It's a safe way to gather information, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But look now, Teramoto now is the one being pushed. You see, now he's going back. I don't know if I'm thinking too much on this.
I don't think it's a stretch to say he's holding. You know, he doesn't necessarily need to hunt for another point at this. You know, he's got the ippon, but he also he has to keep up the pressure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, like, of course he's Teramoto. He's not just like, oh, letting go of the pressure. There's still, oh, trust me, I know there's still pressure there. What I'm saying is, you can see the different type of kendo, right? My observation on this is that when you're in this type of mood, or this type of maybe mood is a good word, you end up being defensive, and then you can be timed easier on your defense. So it takes only so many times for Shodai to experiment and find out the timing before he can actually come in and take an ippon. I think. Again, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I like to overthink. Look at that. Look at the recovery. You see? That left hand.
Oh, I knew. Oh, geez. Not because I've seen it, but like he sets it up so beautifully.
Yes, that was a great setup. And again, I think is with the, what's it called? With that pressure and the reaction of the time. I feel that at this whole time, Shodai has been gathering information, and then he was able to, use the thread of the morote kote. He's done it a couple times. He's done it like 2 or 3 times already. So trying to see what reaction he gets with the morote kote, come down with that thread, and then come in straight for the men. So I guess the thread of the morote kote kind of gives a little bit of a... We'll come back to this point. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Now, this point is tricky, so everybody has to chill, has to make sure that they do their kendo. Don't blink.
He tried all match. He finally got it.
Oh my god. Okay. Very, very nice morote kote. Right? Very successful waza. Men morote kote for a shiai. Okay, I have a couple of I don't know if I know it's harder for you to keep time. I don't know if you can see the timestamp on my screen. But I have a couple of points that I wanted to just go over with you. I did them on the fly, so I can't remember exactly what was it, but let's watch a little bit of these things. Oh, I think I went too far, maybe. Okay, so this was what I was talking about a little bit about putting the pressure, making sure that I go back. And because they spend this amount of time in Tsuba Seriai, I kind of wanted to just pop the question, how comfortable are Jodan players with Hikiwaza? And do you think that Jodan players have less preference or more preference for the Hikiwaza compared to Jodan? Because I always hear I don't know if it's a myth or if it's a fact, that Jodan players tend to be better at Hikiwaza than Jodan players.
Oh, I'll say myth. I'll say mid.
Man,
But Hikiwaza is open to both Jodan and Jodan players equally. I've scored Ippons from Hikiwaza. You have to be on top of your Hikiwaza game just as much. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that. I think, I like doing Hikiwaza. I go in. I don't go in to get Hikiwaza, but when I'm in there, it's still a valid chance for Ippon. So you should practice it. Definitely keep practicing it, folks.
Totally. I think maybe this myth comes from the point of the beginner side of Jodan, because they're so eager to go back. So maybe they start going back and start pulling the hands up, making them, exposing them a lot. But as seasoned player, they don't go immediately. They go back into Jodan, be defense, and then go into their Jodan position, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So
I want to get back as fast as possible sometimes.
Yeah. But, obviously you want to know within reason what time is the right time. Okay, so I have this next segment right here that, okay, let's see. So that communication right there, let's break down a little bit about what's happening here, where it's a good point. Let's try to just observe what's going on here, what's the communication that's coming from Teramoto to Shodai that is stopping him from attacking, and also what is coming from Shodai to Teramoto that is stopping him from going in. So if you have any pointers, any
I'm thinking that they were both hunting for their opportunity. And I can put my, because we take a lot of personal bias into sometimes.
Of course.
Thinking of the Jodan player in this regard, Teramoto is really protecting his men very well. He's also protecting his kote, and it's almost, and I'm not sure where this was in regards to the first Ippon. If it's after it, then Shodai definitely has to understand that if he goes men again, he might catch another Debana men.
Yeah.
Like he just got the first round. So there might be a little bit of a reluctance there. But his defense, Teramoto's defense is so strong also on the right side that he can't really afford to go for that Morote right there.
Yeah.
And vice versa, Teramoto doesn't want to give up anything.
Go ahead.
Both kind of, in Jodan sometimes too, we get to a point to where we don't see our opening, and immediately we tend to close the distance on one another.
One thing that I kind of want to point out specifically from this point is the way they're moving. Both of them, they're engaging their legs first. You can kind of see how one is trying to anticipate the motion of the other. But many times, many beginners, they try to just do this, to just do a lot of motion to get a reaction. But what you're seeing here is you see the body then the sword, rather than, let me just move the sword to see what happens. There is very dangerous for both sides because both of them are doing this. You can see it a lot on the engagement of the back leg of each of them, right? Every time they move, the left leg or the back leg just really anchors, ready to go forward for the next step. Okay. Then the next point is going to be right here. And it's a little bit of that, the first Morote Kote that he tried, that it was, very, very close. So I want to see if you can break down a little bit of how he made the decision, what happened here that you think makes it where he felt there was an opening.
All right. He showed, I'll do this a lot of times, hint. So he showed movement first. So, and then if you saw Teramoto kind of, each time he saw the movement, he reacted to that movement. He did it twice, and then after the second time, he just went straight in. So I think that he saw his opportunity, but it also might have been, you know what, I'm gonna prod Teramoto. I'm gonna poke him a couple of times, and if he opens up like that again, I'm going Morote Kote. And then he probably knew, I better go backwards afterwards, because if I miss it, we catch one.
The one thing that I'm gonna say too is that again, he tried that high defense, right? That high defense with both hands up. And that, again, as we said earlier, that's one of the easier way for Morote Kote to be scored, right? So as you said, Shodai gave him that pressure. Not here, not here, not here. Here. Pap, he gave that pressure. Then what you said, he tried it and he saw that Teramoto is going up.
Mm-hmm.
And then in one of them, he did that pressure again. And he went for that Morote Kote. Okay. I believe that the next point, okay. Right here. Wait. So this is a little bit of my approach towards against Jodan, and again, is try to bait them to bring their hands down because I feel more confident challenging with two hands the sword. And on this side, I feel that I think 90% of the attacks that Teramoto threw in this match were after baiting him or after trying to do the bana against him, right? Rather than just going in for any other shikake, just blindly going in. He's trying to get him to bring down his guard. And he was, I think, very observant into trying to do this early on in the match. You see, like, he gets a reaction from him and immediately, goes in for a deflection, like a men kaeshi men, I guess, in this case, right? Discipline says a lot of Jodan players rely on Morote Kote because of shoulder endurance, probably feeling that painful burn in the shoulders. And he says that, LOL at the end. Yeah, I think it could be one of the reasons, but I think it's a very useful tool to have in your belt. So I don't know, any other observations on this exchange?
Yeah, not particularly other than what you mentioned.
Democritus. Yes, Teramoto is on red. Shodai is on white. The next point is Teramoto's Ippon. Okay. And again, I think if I'm not mistaken, the Ippon was done with that challenge, right? Like, he came in after provoking the Shodai to attack. So let me see. So from here, we're gonna go frame by frame. Again, I really enjoy watching footwork in any Kendo matches. You can see the pressure being given with the left foot. Shodai decides to come in, and Teramoto start pulling back, but it's kind of like a fake pullback, right? He just anchored himself to then return the pressure forward, and he was able to cut through Shodai shinai. And this is what I mean about having two hands over one, right? Here, he was able to hit and change the angle of Shodai's path, right?
Yes, absolutely he was. He just overpowered him right there. And he had the timing down too. He knew what was right there. Perfect Waza in defense. Jose, I got my family's gonna come in here in a second right quick. So I'm just gonna mute it fast. If you want to keep going, that's fine, but I'm just gonna get them in and I'll come right back in like 2 minutes if that's all right.
That's okay, it's no problem.
Yeah, I'll just mute it and then
okay. I'll be right here, and of course I'm gonna keep going over this parts of the video while he comes back. So that's my observation on this one. The next point that I had is over here. Okay. So this exchange right here that you see Shodai do, I really like how he's taking the pressure. The point when I said earlier that you want to learn how to sharply strike without any wasted movements is because this movement right here. If you see this, if Teramoto would have a forward intention at this moment right here, when Shodai comes in, if it would have been with a better anchor, he could explode it in and take that kote very quick. I've seen a couple matches, especially some of the older matches. I think Ishizuka Sensei has, was it Ishizuka against Yamamoto? That they took this kote specifically, where they took the Jodan player took the step in, and then the Jodan player just went straight up and was able to catch the escote without even cocking the sword back, without pulling the sword back. He went directly in, got a nice snap, and very nice escote. Democritus, yes, it was the Bannerman. He provoked Shodai to bring the sword down, and he went in for that man. Let me see if there's anything else here that I forgot to mention. So no, that's what I wanted to mention up there. Okay, so the next point that I have here. So this is, I feel that when Shodai is making that threat with the Morote Kote a little bit more prominent, try to get an opening. So remember, at this point of the match, Teramoto is 1 point up. Sorry. Teramoto is also trying to be defensive, trying to hold the point, because at this point he technically has the victory. And Shodai needs to find a strategy to make an opening without risking opening himself. So, of course, he tries different things. He has tried the approach with the pressure and then coming back to try to gather information. Here, he's being very committed at throwing in himself, emulating that Morote Kote, that he's coming for that Morote Kote, trying to get Teramoto to cover in the Kote, but instead of doing that, Teramoto decides to go back. But that doesn't take away how Shodai has that forward intention and still try different techniques. Very risky, but also almost had the opportunity to get an ippon. In a tournament setting, this could be very, very stressful. Okay, give me 1 second. I think, yeah, Jason is back, so give me 1 second, guys. Let me put him back in. Okay, say something.
I'm something.
Okay, cool. let me put you into the spot. Okay, let's see. Let's go into the ippons. Let's break down a little bit of the ippons that we saw from Shodai, right? Oh, this I wrote this down because of that helicopter recovery, as Discipline said. And this is, again, recovery, I think, on Jodan is essential. But again, Shodai is just another level, right?
That's just another level of risk. Like, I just can't imagine.
It's such a nice hit. And at this point, if you noticed, he actually didn't do katate men, right? He actually went with both hands. So he is closing the distance. What I was mentioning earlier, that if you are able to hit that kote with a snap without any wasted movement, if Teramoto would have forward intention here, that kote was right there for him. I think that kote was very much at risk at this point. But Shodai, with his approach, got Teramoto to go backwards, and then he decides to come back in. Teramoto is being very cautious of that Morote Kote, right? So he's defending against that Morote Kote because he realized, maybe, again, I'm assuming, he kind of went to covering up first, but then he realized, oh, he's going for the Morote Kote, so he changed the angle of defense, and at that point, that's when Shodai decides to come in. And at this point, because I think Teramoto had that backwards intention, didn't have enough time to recover for against that, right?
Yeah, I agree. He had him on his back heel. All his weight was dispersed on the back, and it just gave him that opportunity.
So let's see. So you see here, he's gonna take, after he takes a step, you see how kind of high the shinai is. He's like, okay, he's gonna cover up high, but he sees that he's coming down, so he has to readjust. Now, I have this theory, it's not a theory, it's more of an observation. When every time that you cover in Kendo unnecessarily, when you have like a little bit of an overreaction that I cover because it wasn't necessary, there is like an overcorrection period right after. So you see this a lot when people like they do like this hard cover up here, but the person that doesn't attack, they immediately relax and then they get hit, right?
Yes.
So you see a lot of this happening where he covered, but then he realized, oh, I need to go. But because he had an over relaxation, it made it harder for him because he had the shinai backwards. And at this point, it's impossible to catch on.
And he was moving his feet too. You could see Shodai Sensei's kind of feet get to the point to where he was ready to make that switch from Jodan No Kamae feet to his Chudan. Right when he brings it down, he sees his opportunity.
Ah, yeah, you see, he switched right here.
And he plants that left foot and makes his switch right there.
That is crazy. Yeah, I didn't see that one. Very nice. So maybe go ahead.
Yeah, it's because he's got to do that without showing it immediately, because if you can tell, like our feet give us away just as much as a lot of other parts of our body in Kendo, right? If he moves that foot first, Teramoto automatically knows what's going on. But he did it in transition when he already had Teramoto on his back. It's beautiful.
Totally. I actually have a couple of videos of this guy that I told you that I met in Japan, that he does the things like Shodai does. And maybe next stream that we do together, if you would like to do this again, we can talk about switching from Jodan to Chudan and so on. And some of the details of footwork that have to be specific to Jodan, right? We can go more into that. We can explore some of the higher level elements when it comes to that. Okay. The next point was right here, 940. Let me see. Okay, now this was the ippon, and then the last one, it's a little bit further in. So I think at this point, this kote kind of became from that pattern that you mentioned before, right? That he saw, he tried once, he tried twice, like, oh, he's doing it, so now he commits, right?
Absolutely. And again, I'm looking at his footwork too, as well as his hands and what he's using to create this.
So this looks like a regular attack. Okay, like he was gonna attack and then he stopped it, right? This is why I always say, always work on footwork, foot control, stability. Again, he does this pushing with the left foot, makes Teramoto go back. Oh. Crazy.
So I mean, there's the opportunity there, because he saw Teramoto Sensei come up like, oh yeah, worried about that minute.
Wait, hold on, give me a second. So I'm having a little bit of issue there. Yeah. Okay, say that one more time.
Well, I was gonna say, like, he Shodai Sensei saw, like, hey, when he showed Min the first time, Teramoto immediately went up, and he missed his opportunity, but he didn't let it stand on that. He immediately went back to it, and that's when he hit the kote, because he knew Teramoto was likely to raise up in defense of his men.
Even though he didn't give him the same block, he did give him a block, and he already figured out the timing. He figured out a lot of different elements that made it easier for him to catch that kote.
Absolutely.
Okay, discipline says don't block. That's where you become uchikomidai, hidden dummy.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true. Yeah, especially when people catch your timing. Okay, so this last video that I have prepared is, hold on, let me switch the screen real quick. It's from Kendo World, and let me see. I forgot the name of the sensei. Okay, it's Oishi versus Shodai. I don't know from what prefecture Oishi was from here at this point, but anyways. Oh, no sound. Hold on, give me a second. We good. I like this angle too because we can see a little bit of that defense triangle that you were talking about right here, right? So if you see the triangle from Shodai, you see the triangle that he's making up here, and you can also see the shinai that it's right at the edge of that triangle, right? Am I seeing it correctly?
You're absolutely saying that correctly. Absolutely, because he's given himself, you know, his sime and his pressure is now put on the left kote, and that's that. I think a lot of people tend to want to strike first against the Jodan player, so because it is the closest.
Now,
It's just
in favor of the people learning to fight against Jodan, because one of the things that I always like to do this for, like I like to even with my limited knowledge of Jodan, I try to at least give it to the students, at least to know what the kamae looks like and to keep in mind what to do, is because I feel that Jodans a lot of times have an advantage because they find a lot of people that don't know how to fight against Jodan, right?
Yes,
So one thing that I feel could be misinterpreted a lot is how to kamae against Jodan. You saying the whole thing about the triangle. Hold on, I'm gonna put my full screen here. See a lot of times about the triangle, but I feel that a lot of times people misinterpret this and they overextend that right arm. So at this point, there is there's no playroom from this arm. What should be the right position for the arm, the right extension for the arm when you are doing kamae against Jodan?
So I like, you know, because I've fought against Jodan players. In fact, if I go against a Jodan player, I'll take Jodan against them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not against them because I feel like the strongest at that point. I keep mine. It's hard for me to say, but I would keep mine right around this distance here. Like I don't want to keep it where I would normally keep my Jodan. You can. I particularly don't. I go out just a little bit further because I do want that opportunity to create momentum. I do want that, but I also want to keep my distance a mystery to the Jodan player. Okay, so I know that that's kind of some high level stuff there, but when you don't want to overextend like you said. I really don't think you want to overextend like you said. It doesn't really help at all because there's no mystery there. But when you pull it back in the half point here, you're able to then maybe make a strike from further a distance, but you're also able to manipulate it. And what I'm doing here is I'm manipulating back in and back out, back out. So when the time comes and you start to close in on that Jodan player, you can actually move forward and close in like this very stealthily, and you'll give yourself just that much to be able to get to the kote. So like that's my preference. Yeah.
Yes, this is something that I normally do when practicing. Not only against Jodan, I try to do it in different situations as well. Sometimes by just altering the distance of your shinai away from your opponent and closer to your opponent, it can really be confusing for them in order. Yeah, so you can get a little bit of more extra surprise factor, a little bit of explosivity. But if you overextend it, that's it. You have nowhere to go. And you become much slower that way as well.
Then I would also say that, you know, I've had considerable success. It's not over. I've also had some success. Now, I 100% agree with you, Jose. Earlier you said, like, you know, just teaching, when you teach a beginner against Jodan, teach them to go ahead and keep that one strong, to make a very smooth strike, right? To make a powerful strike. However, my thing is that you also, at the very beginning, maybe not so helpful, but those out there who are a little more experienced, start to think about how you can manipulate going from kote to kote. So this is my number one advice to people in my own dojo who are at a level where I think they can get it. Like, you know, if you start to go migi kote, hitari kote, whichever one, but you need to start making that Jodan player think like, oh geez. And not to mention the reaction, the interaction here, the communication between your shinai against the Jodan player is much like how a Nito player will use their shoto to kind of dangle in front of you so they can move their feet, they can get their position while you're worried about where that one is in regards to yours. So think about that, and then from there, I teach some of my people like, all right, so from here you can quickly move
Yes.
that way. From there you quickly move this way. It offers a versatile strike against both kotes.
Yes, and that's one of my favorite things to do actually. To not necessarily, I don't like to target so much the left kote as much as I like to target the right kote. So it's preference, I guess. Real quick, Democritus says thank you to both of us for doing this. He's sending his greetings from Costa Rica. Democritus, thank you for passing by. You're welcome always here. And yeah, I hope to go to Costa Rica at some point soon, so maybe we can practice together. I used to have a couple friends that I met in one of the Latin American championships, so yeah, hope we get to practice together. And Discipline says you have to circle to the right stealthy when in Jodan. This is a point that we haven't talked about, but I think it's a very important.
Yeah. I just had this conversation with my sensei this last practice, right? Because I try not to give too many of my secrets away, but at the same time, in the interest of education, like I want everybody to learn from it. So I think the best way, circling, of course, what he's saying is like you're moving around to the Jodan player's right.
Yes.
Right? And you're putting yourself to decrease that distance between the Jodan player and that left kote. So in essence, the player is moving around here to strike that kote. And what I had a nice little conversation with my sensei. What I was trying to pass off to him was like, don't be so direct about it. So step in to your left, take a step in to your left, take a step into your right. Like move in a direction that forces your Jodan player, because I can't speak for everybody, but we don't like twisting.
Yeah.
A side movement is something that Jodan players not necessarily have a lot of waza for. That some may do, but if you get a Jodan player to turn,
yes,
your opportunity to strike. So I would go left, get your Jodan player to turn this way, and then get them to go right. And in the middle of that turn, as they adjust to get back to the center, that's where you make your strike.
So I'm going to put a big asterisk on this. I'm going to say this from observation, experience, and, overall talking to people. This can get somebody in Jodan to be kind of relaxed as they move to the side.
Yeah.
And being susceptible to being hit. So that being said, if you're moving to the side, you have to be aware at all times, not only because of your opportunity to strike, but also because it's their opportunity to strike. Especially against Migi Jodan, because this turning around doesn't work as well against Migi Jodan. For them, it's much easier to hit when you're turning than for a Hidari Jodan. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing a big part of this is because if you turn to the left, if you're a Jodan player, you turn to the left, your leg is on the way, right? So now you have to go around with your hips. But if your right leg is on the way and you turn, it's a little bit of a different engagement. So
also think about where the Jodan player's right foot is. Typically, we already turn this way. So when we turn even more, we lose so much more of our footing to go. We have to get that foot back to a point where we can push off. But you're right, though. I cannot deny that. Like, if you're going against a Jodan player who can very easily switch to the right Jodan, then you could get yourself in a lot of trouble trying to attack in such a manner.
Yeah, I'm not saying for them to change as they move, but especially I actually had to fight a Migi Jodan player once, and I noticed that real quick, that as soon as you turn, it's not, you don't break that tension between the Jodan player as much as when they are in Hidari Jodan, because again, that right leg, it's much easier for them to attack. Because imagine if you're in Jodan and somebody's moved to the left, you can hit him very easily, right? And as a matter of fact, you are getting out of center sometimes, and you can actually be much more at risk. So with Hidari Jodan, from that position, it becomes, in my experience, it becomes very risky. Not Hidari Jodan, Migi Jodan, right leg in the front. When you have the right leg in the front, and then I figure out that then you cannot do a little bit of the opposite. You go the other way, because you put that leg in the way. It becomes a little bit, but again. Every player
There's
is
some-
different. Don't go into a fight with a formula. I'm just saying, be mindful of these things.
Very good. Very good. That's a good observation.
And then discipline saying, as you circle into the right, the pressure, the left kote. Yes, I agree 100% with that. While in Chudan, and always be ready to perform kaeshi as defense when you're in Chudan. I think he said the same things that I just said. I guess you said it before, but I didn't read the message. I promise. Anyways. Okay. Okay, we're talking about this. I guess now we can be mindful of how he turns, how he moves to the right of the player, because again, he has the left foot. You see, he has the left foot in the front, so if Oishi moves to the right, to his right, the left of the Jodan player, then that left foot is going to be on the way, so he has to really adjust that foot before he can move it, or adjust the left foot, the back foot, to be able to push into the right direction. Anyways, I'll shut up now. So I feel like here he has having a little bit more of an aggressive approach than Teramoto had against Shodai, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. He's definitely, look at there's the, oh yeah. He's managing his distance in a very...
And you see how the right arm, ooh, okay, I'm gonna put this. He's managing the right arm to not just keep it extended all the time.
Pressure. Whoa.
This is something that we haven't talked about.
Wow.
We'll come back to this.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about it. Other than men and Gote.
Oof. Democritus, we'll talk about the reason for that not being Ippon in a minute. Yeah, Teramoto is just something else.
Yes, he is.
I have a friend that actually, they said that in Tokyo, the school where he was, or the work where he was, they called him the magician of Kendo. So he can make your shinai disappear on one side, make it appear on the other side. That was a silly joke. True story though. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kote that I was talking about. You know, when you can do it right distance.
Mm-hmm.
Very sharp. But Shodai is not really being so committed when he's not attacking, so it's very hard to get a technique from that. Which is another defense I think that Jodan players can have, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I just have to say it because Oishi has attacked, 4 or 5 times more than Teramoto did
Mm-hmm.
in the previous we watched. So you have to understand, like, you get some attackers like that, some people that are showing that they're not. It's not so much that they're afraid, but they're willing to attack. It does change the mentality of how I fight more attacks, and I can see a reluctance, because the last match we saw, Shodai was really he was more attack centered. He threw
Yeah.
a lot, but now that he knows he's getting attacks, it changes his idea, perspective, possibly, or at least it does from our analysis standpoint.
Yeah, and he's letting him know that he knows it's coming and he's ready to do whatever he needs to get an ippon.
Backing down. And I like this. There's more of a tension in Zubazeriai. Like, it's almost as if someone watched one of the other ones score Hikiwaza or something like that, Hikiball, because there's more of a tension getting out of Zubazeriai here than there was previously. There it is. Jeez.
That's a very change of pace. That's a very good change of pace. Shodai really like. We'll come back to this one too. Now at this point, I feel like Oishi is changing the strategy too, right? Like he's making him get a little bit frustrated with his attacks, and maybe understanding the rhythm of attack from Shodai. Oof.
Oh, oh.
Try that Morote Kote.
He
Very
tried to
risky.
move up 3 times in a row, and the third time he tried for it.
This is something. Okay, I'm gonna write this down. This is something that I kind of wanted to discuss because it's very open to misinterpretation. That letting go of that right hand.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
Challenge the man. That footwork the way she has to close in the distance. So tight, so tight.
His left foot is right there with him whenever moves.
There's one thing when we talk about kendo that can be, I think, confusing for people at the beginning, is that when we say one step, we don't mean only move one leg. You have to move both legs for one step. And
Yes,
he's doing that.
great point. Yeah, he's ready. He's ready. He's not trying to perform some Imeashi, just one movement forward, leave his left back engaged.
That was close.
It was. Uh-oh.
So I always say that going back to a fight is the most dangerous point, and there it is.
He was ready for it. Yeah.
Listen, coming back into the fight after a break is the most dangerous point because it resets the mindset, and a lot of times people just kind of let go of the pressure. They think especially the person that thinks that the fight's still the same, after that break, that person normally gets hit very quickly. So you gotta understand that you're coming in fresh. You gotta expect anything, like if it's a new opponent. If you come in already with expectation at the beginning of okay, you had the same fight, you can have a really bad time. You can just go really easy. Okay.
You're creating rhythm the whole time, and when you break that rhythm, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, totally. So let's go back to a couple of the extra points of the few points that we picked up from this fight. Guys, if anybody's here haven't already, please take a second to hit the like button. That way this video gets pushed out to more people out there. It really helps the channel, okay? Really appreciate it. Let's go to our first point. Okay. So we talked a little bit about moving sideways, right? And how to create kind of like diffusing Jodan, right? And we also talk a little bit about the distance between how far your hand should be from your body as you're in Kamae against Jodan. I feel that here he's being very, very fluid with that. And this motion, this movement, I feel that he had to do it in order to diffuse that pressure, right? I feel that Shodai came with so much presence that he said like, okay, I need to get out. And going backwards, a lot of times can be very hurtful against Jodan, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, and he's check me if I'm wrong here, Jose, but like the differences of the Mai, these two matches that we've watched, the first one they were much closer to one another, and then this here they are not a lot further away, but there's definitely some more room between the two of them. And I think the goal, and especially when you start throwing in Oishi, is it has a different style of defense, and he's circling Shodai as well. It's changing the dynamics of the fight, forcing Shodai to kind of throw some moves like that, even just to kind of break the rhythm of Oishi.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because here, since Oishi, it's interesting what you said, because yes, they had a bigger distance from one another, but Oishi has attacked more than Teramoto did, right? So he's making the decision to come in to pressure him, but then he changed the rhythm towards the end, right? Very interesting. Okay, next point. Let's see what's around here. And it was the Yakudo, right? So somebody asked, let's see, Democritus asked, why was this not an ippon? I'm gonna say what he did is he successfully made an opening, and he let him know that there was something else that he needed to be aware of. He needed to be worried about, which is now the door, right? Closing the distance, coming in. Now, I feel that. Go ahead. What do you say? You think this was not a do?
No, I mean it's right there at the bottom, almost making contact with the Tade first. And of course, maybe I'm missing that. Please correct me if I'm missing that. But he barely catches the bottom of that dough.
Maybe. I mean, it's hard to see with the frames of the camera, but I think. Go ahead.
Why do you think it wasn't Ippon?
I think the target area was not correct, as you said. I don't know if it's below, because it's really hard to see when the impact was based on the frame rate of the camera right now. But I'm thinking that at this point he hit the front of the door.
Yeah.
Right? He was a little bit. The angle was not correct, because you want to hit the side, right? You want to hit the side rather than the front. So I feel like he hit more towards kind of like this area right here. That being said, it could also be that he didn't have the correct Hatsuji on the strike. It's really hard to tell, but it did sound good. I know many judges that will give this ippon. I maybe I would have given this ippon as well, given the level that they had, because everything else, I think everything else was present.
Yeah. You just have to go with the level. I mean, like, those are three very accomplished shimpan there. And if they didn't see it to raise their flag, then there's something we might not miss. And I guess that's a good point for all who are participating when we do these analysis videos. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, that was Ippon. I'm like, well, we weren't really there. So there might have been something else that
Totally.
Jose and I are. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I was talking to George McCall a while back from Kenshi 24/7, and we're talking about Ippon and Yukodo Totsu. And he said that one of the things that he likes to, promote to his students is to go watch the All Japan Ippon compilations, because it will show you what the higher standing judges consider Ippon, right? Especially the slow motion and so on. Figure out what made those Ippon an Ippon, and then emulate that on your kendo. So we have to say here also why these attacks are not ippons as well, right? So how could I have done it better? I think maybe hitting a little bit deeper for the target. It looked like it was a little bit on the front, but I'm also going to say the judge that was watching it the most, that had the clearest view, was right there. He definitely saw that it wasn't correct. The other judge was on the back, so maybe getting the reference from the other judge that he didn't see anything, and maybe the other judge did. Actually, no, maybe the other judge also didn't raise the flag. He got a little bit of that feedback, so maybe that's how they got that consensus. This was not an ippon, right? Which brings me to another topic: shimpaning for Jodan, right? There's a little bit of a difference. There's something else that we need to do different a little bit in order to do good shimpaning against Jodan, right?
Yes. We'll do this and then we'll circle back
Okay.
around to that.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So we watched that. Let's see the next one. Okay. Couple of things happen here that I think are worth mentioning. Number one thing, that letting go of that hand, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about this. Is it a bad habit? Is it a useful?
I call it to say like it's a bad habit. I would just say at the beginning, if you're gonna fight against someone in Jodan, if you have intentionality and you know what you're doing with that and what your goal is to accomplish with that and how you are trying to control that Jodan player into making some sort of reaction, then go right ahead, by all means, do it. However, if you're doing it just because you think it's a way to protect yourself, or even worse, you don't know what to do and you saw someone else do it, so you're going to do it, I would caution against that. Like, go ahead and start making sure you're doing that. Again, I'm using the word with intention. What is your purpose for taking such a stance for that kind of defense? Are you trying to just give yourself a break? Are you trying to actually get that person to do something else? Are you trying to be sneaky? Are you moving your feet while you're doing that? If you're just doing it and you don't know why, I would encourage everyone to figure out the why.
Totally. Especially if it's as a habit, this is something that you don't want to emulate, especially don't want to emulate for the wrong reasons. I think it has its place, like an emergency moment where you feel that you need to protect the man, and you definitely don't want to go like this. Maybe you're too close. You don't want to go like this because, again, we talked about it. This is an automatic kote for your partner. So doing this to letting go of the hand when the kote is coming could be a way to safeguard yourself. You protect more points this way. But again, you have to have good sword control. You have to understand what you're doing. And when you're doing it is key. Because you can also be in a bad position, especially, let's say that, again, this is a made-up scenario. Throw in the kote, the Jodan player throws the kote, you took off your hand, but then now they're under your shinai, so they can easily pull your shinai out of the way and maybe get you with a Hikiwaza, or maybe even just push you on Tayatari and get you the man. So you have to be very careful when you do it. I like you, I will advise against it. The only way I would try to use this is, again, if I see the person is coming for my kote as I'm defending the man, and immediately after I take off my kote, I will try to challenge that man. Right?
Yes.
So this is the only way, but again, I wouldn't, this is not something I like to do. It's not something that I can say I am, an expert of doing this.
Yes.
Next, we have a couple more things happening here. So then he goes into this kote. This, again, I think is a very good skill to have, being able to regain control of your shinai like this and immediately throw in a waza, right? This is kind of what I was talking about, throwing that kote directly into the target. Of course, he missed, but I think it's a great skill. I feel that in this case, he used the letting go of the hand as a way to kind of diffuse the tension, and then he went back into it. It was very deceptive, but very, very useful tool, I think.
Yes. And there was also a moment there where it was like, oh, he decreased the distance really fast because he realized he was out there.
Correct. Democritus is asking, is it valid to change from Jodan to Katate Jodan? From Jodan to Katate Jodan? It is, right?
You mean, Democritus, just, instead of this one, just having one? I've tried it. It's not easy.
Yeah, but it's legal. It's allowed.
Yeah, I could switch, from Chudan to Jodan.
Yeah.
There's no rules per se on that one. Yeah, I guess I would say it's gonna be very hard.
Yeah, and again, you could also be dealing with different mechanics, as we talked about earlier when we were talking about, especially like the way that Nito players do it and so on, using the center of the shinai, the balance point. Okay, next part. I need to get better at making notes here quicker with saying what the note was for, because I don't remember why I stopped this one.
This one?
I'm starting to see a lot of the pressure approach that you were talking about from Jodan. Pulling the hands up. Yeah, there you go.
It is, yeah.
So I don't remember why I stopped this one, so I'm gonna skip it to the next one. What's that?
You got an interesting comment.
Yes, I just read that too. So you're saying that you've been told that if you switch Kamae and Shiai, the judges don't take you seriously. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't agree. I don't agree. I mean, is it the job of a shimpan to not take persons seriously? I thought we were a good shimpan will remain biased and look for the valid points of
yes,
and whether or not a ippon has actually been performed. That would be saying that a shimpan would not take you seriously would imply that there is bias implemented, and that maybe that shimpan would then not take any of your ippons seriously.
Yeah, correct.
I would hope that would not happen.
Ippon is Ippon, so discipline. You're saying that a good match is the 2012 WKC finals, Japan versus Korea. I think that's the one. No, you sent me the. I think it was that one. That was Brazil, right? Because I think that's a 14.
Discipline. Are you referring to the one where there were several kotes that were hit, but Shodai had this kote down here, and there were several kotes hit right there, and then maybe one judge said ippon.
Oh, Italy. It was Italy. Okay. Okay. We can watch it in a future stream, definitely. I feel like I'm taking a lot of your guys' time. I need to figure out how to make this ones the streams a little bit shorter because I feel like people, you know, disengage at some point.
That's true, but it's too much fun to talk
Yeah,
about.
it is a lot of, we could talk all day. You know what? I've been thinking about maybe making a section of the stream of making a day of the stream. I call it second dojo, and we'll have like beers and we just drink as we talk.
Yeah.
This one will last forever, you know?
That one, I have to do that one at night though.
Okay.
That's the one. He says that's the one. Yeah, that's it. I know what you're talking about. This one. We'll save it for a future.
Yes. Okay, so this was another one, and I just want to point out is just this. This is what I'm talking about when I say you want to create power without wasting motion. It wasn't a valid strike, but I just want to first show you how strongly he hits with such little movement. So if you watch it here.
Jeez, he's already there too, you know?
Yes. So, and if you see it, like he's been doing a great job at closing the distance. Sometimes even adjusting your center line like he's doing here, Oishi, on the left hand. He's letting go of the center a little bit with the left hand, but keeping the tip in the center, right? And as he approaches the distance, he's trying to get an opening here. And then at this point, he just triggers. You see, without moving the sword backwards. He directly goes in. It's like a, what's it called? Like those electrical magnets. Electrical magnet just turned on and the sword and the thing just went in there, right?
Right.
This is a great skill to have. Tenouchi, tenouchi, tenouchi. That's all I can say.
Sounds like an idea for a T-shirt, man. Tenouchi.
Yeah, right. Like, more like I wish I had better tenouchi.
Say it again. Tenouchi.
Yeah. Okay. So here's where I feel that Shodai started changing a little bit of the timing of his approach. I just want to point out that many people, when you disengage from Suba Serie, they feel that, okay, you're kind of resetting. You have to, it kind of almost feels like they're waiting for a Hajime from somebody. But Shodai, he caught up that moment. Good Kenshi will understand this moment and just go. And Shodai, you see, he's coming backwards. When he goes in, he's like, whoa, there was a moment of relaxation. I'm going in. So much that Aoishi kind of had to overreact a little bit, right? He kind of had to get out of the way. You see, he was like a little bit too relaxed. Like, whoa, time to wake up, no?
And I think that's actually an opportunity that you were talking about earlier, because that distance between them looked to decrease. So remember when I said, well, yeah, if you circle off to the right, you can actually, he circles to the right, but then Shodai manages it marvelously and is able to decrease. They're right there. He gets closer in on him.
Yep.
And then a good point, Jose, is like, you know, for all the folks, I don't know how it's done out there. People in the comments can chime in on this one. Where that Shimpan is right now, where the what am I trying to say?
Shushin, Shushin.
Where he's at right now is where the majority of our barriers for our Shiaijo are. Right. So the distance that you have to be careful when you start to enact these Shiai style waza and defenses against and offenses against Jodan, you don't really have a lot of room to circle around, because where Oishi ends up here is very dangerous. Because that's going to be 12 meters.
Correct.
So most 9 meters we usually set up over here.
Correct.
Cut, right? So if you'll play it just a little bit, and watch where Oishi ends up. So he's running around like that. You know, that's right on the border. So as you're practicing your dojo, I would definitely be mindful of the space that you would normally have in a Shiaijo.
Totally. Yes, that's a good point. A lot of the chords that we get here in US, I know we have very small space, and you have to really, Shiaijo management becomes so much more important. So for example, and this is something that got pointed out to me when I went to a tournament in Japan, that you're gonna see at the higher level that all Kenshi like to fight on this angle, right? Because why? You have a longer distance from corner to corner. You have more floor space. But if you are parallel to the edges, then you're too close to the line behind you, right? So here you get a little bit of extra wiggle room, I guess. So this is definitely good to know when you're fighting in a smaller court. So this is the point that I wanted to talk about. The communication between Jodan and Jodan becomes a little bit more difficult because there's less things that you can do in order to cause a reaction, right? Because if we're both in Jodan, there's many things you can do to get a reaction. So for example, he's doing this little steps, right? He's trying to get a reaction, and Shodai is like kind of not baiting, right? Not biting.
Yeah. He knows his distance. That's why. Like he knows, like this is not where I'm at. I could spring from here and actually hit man if I didn't know that he was waiting on it. You know, yeah. I think it's a good try, maybe a little bit closer.
Yes.
Is a try in the dojo. You know, when you start doing something, baiting someone, get a little bit closer.
Yeah, totally. And this is one of the things that you want to start doing. I guess the equivalent in Jodan will also be when you do this type of stepping and maybe you knock the shinai at the same time. You know, this is kind of like this. He's trying to get that opening. What I do find interesting is because exactly what you said, the distance. He knows the distance too far. He's not biting, but he's also noticing that he's on the backward move, right? He's not really committing forward, going backwards. So what do we do against people that go back? Yeah. It's Tsuki, and it was very, very close. I think it wasn't a good Tsuki, but it could have been a dangerous Tsuki right there.
That's why I kind of giggled when Chiba Sensei was doing his waza against Ski. I'm like, if only it were that easy.
Yeah, right.
That Ski flies in there, you have no time at all to get that kick done.
Totally, you gotta definitely have a good poker face there.
Yeah. He's right though. You got to be prepared to be skied.
So here, okay, I noted this. We talked a little bit about this already, about the whole letting go of the hand. We already talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one obviously is going to be the ippo. We have to watch that. Again, as I said, when you reset the fight, you have to be very careful because it's a point where people can come and get you. So here, Shodai gave a little bit of pressure. Okay, let me just play it and you give us a little bit your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Oh man, wow. He was ready. So like if I'm in this position, I feel like I have the advantage, and I would have attacked too because I noticed my opponent is put like the distance of their feet are so far, but. Oishi just had his ready to go like a spring, just ready to go. So he gave the impression that he was actually going back, and all of it was he was going to get stuck on his back foot, but he was ready, almost as if he knew this was coming.
So I'm going to say I think he knew it was coming, right? He kind of like, I think he baited him, and I think you know who does this very well that I noticed? Hoshiko. He actually got a very nice ippon in this last All Japan this year, where he gives the pressure forward, but then he pretends to go backwards, right? But as he go backwards, he's anchoring that left leg and immediately pushing forward, right? So he kind of offsets the distance for the opponent because now the opponent is aiming further because they're trying to anticipate where they're going to be. So at this point, I feel that, I don't think you can see my mouse, but right now, I feel like, oh, okay, my phone. Right now, it looks like Shodai is going to try to go not necessarily where Oishi is, but a little bit further back. But on the other hand, Oishi's anticipating where he's going to be. So as he comes forward, you see he anchors the left leg. He starts the motion without pulling back the right hand. And then he's aiming, I believe, like where right now where Shodai has his right foot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is right here, you see? That's where my mouse was. And then Shodai missed completely because of that. The offset of timing is so important. It's so important.
And so, can you back it up one more time, right? When show Shodai's initial movement into Oishi. So, oh yeah, wow.
It's gonna be a slow motion here.
Really, really hard to see it, but I just have to trust that Oishi saw it.
Which part?
Right before that. So we have the same thing in Jodan too. We keep talking about these transferable skills. So I don't want to, if I want to try and hide my intentions against my opponent, I don't want to be doing too much dipping.
Mm-hmm.
Unless again, that is my intention, right?
Yeah.
So in this, I feel like maybe I misjudged that, but I feel like I saw Shodai dip just a little bit as he was coming in, and that might have tipped off. See right there?
Yeah, I think so. As a matter of fact, Discipline right now says that Shodai gives off a bad tell as a Jodan player by dipping before he making a strike.
I didn't even see that comment. That's absolutely good catch. Good catch, Discipline. So we do that. So that we do that in Jodan too. So we talk about these transferable skills, and like you don't want to, if you're really trying to move on your opponent, and this is for the beginners out there that might want to start doing Jodan, like try to keep that level head. You do it in Jodan practice. Do it in Jodan practice as well. When you move forward, when you're doing your footwork, don't just dips. Right? Keep it straight. And then later on, of course, you can start to manipulate that in this way you see fit, but still.
You know, one thing that I feel is very helpful for this, Kirikaeshi, but specifically the first step of Kirikaeshi, going into Tayatari without doing Tayatari without stopping at the moment of Tayatari. You want to do the Tayatari or even keep going without Tayatari. And the key to this, I think, is the first step before you engage into the right distance for Kirikaeshi. So if you manage to take the first step in without dipping and immediately after that raise the sword, I think it helps a lot. Because many people, what they will do is that they will lean forward, take the first step with the right one, with the right foot, and then as the left leg is coming in, they raise the sword. So they haven't really take one full step before they raise the sword. If you picked up that skill, you're going to be able to have a more fluid approach to the attack.
And that goes back to our conversation of like when is it appropriate to kind of start doing other techniques is when if you are mastering Kirikaeshi and you're doing something at that level, then yeah, you probably could understand a little more Jodan as well.
Totally. So last thing I kind of wanted to cover, we said this, and we're gonna leave obviously much more for the next time we do a stream together, and I promise it'll be shorter because I think this one's going a little bit long, huh? Last thing, it's awareness of positioning as a shimpan, right?
Oh, yes.
So what's different as a shimpan when you have a Jodan player on the court?
All right. So what do they teach us of how we're supposed to line up? What are we supposed to see? So we have a fukushin and we have a shushin, and then where are the outside shimpan? What are they supposed to see when they take their position?
All the targets.
Yeah, all the targets, right? Mm-hmm. So the issue comes then whenever a Jodan player goes into Jodan, can that person now see all the targets? Can the shimpan now see all the targets? Most likely, if of course we have a Jodan player on the left side of the head shimpan, then when they go up, you now have one shimpan who cannot see this kote or this ski at all right? Which are both valid ippons. So you have to kind of think about where the positioning would be if you're a sandan and above out there and you're required to shimpan, or even before and you're starting to think about shimpan, you have to think about how that isosceles triangle changes just a little bit so that you make sure you can see all points of the Jodan player just as well. And then As far as that, like I think that's another benefit of practicing Jodan and having a Jodan player in your dojo is that you get more exposure to those type of ippons, so that when you see it, when you see a morote, ippon, or when you see your Jodan player, see my favorite waza these days is kind of like uchi-otoshi, men. So uchi-otoshi, and then go immediately to men, and it's all morote, it's all two-handed, like real pop. You have to understand, like, someone needs to understand that's the goal of that. And there's other well, so you have to study. You have to study, even if you're not a Jodan player. You have to study what to do when you encounter a Jodan player, or what to do when you shimpan a Jodan match.
Got you. One of the things that I always try to do, and I think this is a good example right here that I just put in the screen. You see how they're supposed to have an isosceles triangle, right? But this triangle is not really isosceles. It's a little bit askew, right? For one of the judges is a little bit off, and this one is a little bit more towards the center. And the Jodan player right now, it's right here. So he's trying to be able to have a good view of the target for the tsuki, and again the opposite kote, because it's kind of impossible. It's kind of impossible to see them all. He doesn't have the perfect view, but at least he can get from this position. He can get enough information to catch the ippon, right?
Correct. Yes.
The other shimpan, he's a little bit out. He can see all of the target areas, and I think it can be a little bit difficult to see Oishi's kote, but he still has enough spacing where he can see it. I don't know. I think that's. I remember when I was in Greece last year, I shimpan in the Greek national tournament, and there was a Nito player, and I was at this position right here. And it just so happened where the Nito player jumped to the side very quickly. And as he did, his opponent kind of just threw a katate tsuki and got the tsuki in there. But because he jumped right in front of me, I couldn't see it. Like, I really couldn't see it. I saw the back of the head, but I couldn't see the ippon. So the other thing I guess I will have to say for shimpan, especially learning shimpan, you want to anticipate the motion and try to move in slightly. Either anticipate where they're going to move, or be aware where the position will be the best position for you, depending where they're going to move. Anyways.
Absolutely. It takes experience. I mean, even trying to judge Jodan ippons, like you
Totally. Man, anything else that you want to add? There's a lot of things that I feel that we're missing that we need to talk about. So hopefully I can catch you and we can do another stream in the future.
Well, I would say just like in kind of closing up, like just, be honest with yourself when you start. If you think about doing Jodan, like, be honest with yourself. Just remember Kihon. Like, you're not going to, even if you're Nidan or Sandan, like maybe you've done well in some tournaments. Like, don't expect that will automatically translate. You'll have to be patient, and you'll have to kind of figure out, like you said at the very beginning, like you'll have to figure out your own Kendo.
Yes.
How that's going to apply to not only your physicality, but your own interpretation of some waza, and also your personality.
No, totally. And we need to start being aware of all these points. I think Jodan, it's a very, we have had all Japan winners in Jodan. We have had very successful competitors in Jodan. And I think it's something that we need to keep in mind and not neglect, because again, the main issue that I see people having against Jodan is not knowing what to do. So hopefully with this, we can start breaking those doors. I would like it for maybe next time if we do a stream together, or if you guys send me some extra questions that maybe you can answer and I'll send them back. But we can talk about more in depth of how transferable we can have Kendo from Jodan into Chudan, but also, how to approach Jodan as a competitor and being able to have the best results. And also we can talk about testing as well if we can.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Okay, good. Would you like to share any of your social media, any of the stuff?
Yeah, no, I don't really have. Yeah, I don't really have much. I mean, I think I video all of my classes and whatnot, all of our, but that's nothing that's necessarily shareable. I'm on Instagram, kimchi underscore JD.
Okay.
I
Oh, write
actually
it right on the chat so people can. And by the way, he's also on the Discord server. He just joined the Discord server yesterday. So if you have any future Jodan questions, you can pass by the server. The link is down in the description below, but I'm also gonna paste the link here for everybody to pass by, be part of that if you would like to be. Give me a second. Okay. That being said, guys, if anybody has any questions, if there's anything that I can help you with, or we can help you with, you can pass by the Discord server. Let us know there. If you can, please, if you haven't hit the like button on this video, it really helps out to push this out to more people. I will also, when you head out, I will ask you to please, I'm pasting a video on the, what's it called? On the messages. If you can go and check it out, if you haven't, is my Shikake and Ojiwasa video. Just give me your thoughts, hit the like button. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel. Also gonna say, so I was just saying that great stream. Thank you everybody for passing by, staying here this long. This was a long video. Thank you for being part of the stream, Jason, and sharing a lot of your knowledge. We have to keep doing this. Maybe in the future we can actually get a couple of more Jodan and Nito players, and we can talk about some of the diversity between Jodan, Nito, and fight. All these different aspects. And
sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, everybody out there. I appreciate you.
And I hope to practice with you soon, man. Really do.
Absolutely. Yep.
Man, take care. Have a good night. Have a good day. Okay, guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate if you can pass by that other video and check it out. Give me your thoughts when you head out. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments or pass by the Discord server. If you would like to be part of the Kendo Tips family, you can join and be a member of the stream. It really helps support the channel, and everything goes back to this channel. So I will really appreciate all your support. That being said, thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Next week, I don't have a guest. I'm working on a couple of things to bring up, to do with you guys. I'm trying to get a couple of senseis to come in, but I haven't figured out what's going to be the best way and the best topic for each of them. So I need to program that. That being said, I want to say thank you very much, everybody. If you can pass by next time, I do my streams on Saturdays, and I'm going to try to do some during the week, okay? Thank you, everybody, for passing by. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one, and remember to share this with someone you want their channel to improve. Bye.